A couple of days ago, I was hearing some murmurs. I think it may have been a couple of days ago about Project Veritas, but nothing confirmed. But now we do have confirmation that James O'Keefe has been placed on paid leave. Several employees signed a letter complaining about his behavior, calling him a tyrant. The strange thing about this letter is that they say that many of the signees never actually witnessed any abuse nor experienced any of it, but decided to sign the letter anyway. Turns out that one of the individuals involved, who may have been about to get fired, has pronouns in his bio, leading many people to believe that this is some kind of coup to remove James O'Keefe. And now Project Veritas has put out a new video with a different host explaining what's going on with their story. Yeah, and no one's buying it. No one's heard from James, so of course this is a huge story. And we got to get into it. We'll talk about that. Plus we'll talk about what's going on with, we got Facebook reinstating Donald Trump. We've got a bunch of different stories, but we're going to get into it, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna talk about some strange censorship that's going on with a person who was recently on this show named Eliza Blue. And I know the chat's going to light up. But for those of you who aren't familiar, this got to a point where, admittedly, within the past hour, I said, okay, look, you guys, the people who have been asking us, politely, I might add, to consider looking into this. We just saw several people, other individuals who have been in the show, who have had a series of YouTube videos taken down. And so I will say, in honor of the polite requests, I think it's actually worth talking about. And I also want to say, too, that, look, with what's happened with Project Veritas had me actually very worried. James O'Keefe, we haven't heard from, we know what's going on. We've had the drama with the Daily Wire and Steven Crowder. Obviously, there was drama involving me, which I feel like all of this, it's getting a little out of hand. It's getting a little crazy, especially considering this other story that we have. 2 Republicans in New Jersey were just killed in the past week. Now, one was by a coworker. We're not entirely sure what the motive was. Another individual was targeted, this woman, in her vehicle. And that made me kind of take stock of everything and just say, okay, look, man, we've got to make sure that at the very least, if we have differences, we're unified in what these problems really are, because it seems like this is really, really bad. Considering Project Veritas recently did one of the biggest exposés of their existence with James O'Keefe, and then almost immediately after, we see him get ousted in some kind of coup attempt, or I should say outright coup. And at least that's what I'm hearing from sources in New York media. Seems like a coup at Project Veritas. Yeah, I think we've got to make sure, at the very least, I ask and that we focus. So I'm going to say this outright. For anybody who's upset with me, I apologize for being brash and crass. I said I wasn't gonna, but I'm genuinely freaked out watching what's happening with Veritas, seeing the infighting between Crowder and Daily Wire, and then now this kind of makes me feel that, look, I'm not perfect and y'all can still be mad at me, but I don't want to engage in any fighting that's going to cause us to actually lose this thing in the long run. Because it's not a good thing. Last night we had a great show with members of Congress. We got to keep this energy up, and we got to make sure that even if we disagree on certain things, we're focused in the same direction towards making things better and fighting for the values that we have. So, considering what we're seeing now with Chrissy Mayer as well, I'll be happy to admit that I was wrong about this one for sure. But I do have some grievances that I'm planning to address that I think some people should be aware about as it pertains to this story. But we'll get into that. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com, become a member to support our work. As a member, you'll get access to exclusive, uncensored members-only shows from this podcast. They go up around 11 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and we had an awesome show. Matt Gaetz comes in swinging and swearing, and we had a really great uncensored show with several members of Congress in the offices of Lauren Boebert last night. Check that one out. And we're going to have one tonight for you as well. You're also helping us with our cultural endeavors. We're setting up a coffee shop, a physical location where people can hang out. We'll talk all about that. And it's underway. We got the contract stuff happening. A lot of expansion is currently happening. So it's all very much exciting. And I think, I just want to make sure we can focus on that positive energy. And this, admittedly, look, man, this Veritas stuff is really creepy because some people are suggesting that he's being ousted by some malicious external forces. So we'll get into all that stuff. Joining us today to talk about this and so much more is we got Reed and Jose from the Tower Gang. How's it going, man?
It's going well. Thanks for having me on, Tim.
Who are you?
I'm Reed Coverdale. I have my own show called The Naturalist Capitalist, and basically talk about how the government ruins everything it touches. Everybody's trying to fix small problems and they create bigger problems. Once a month, I do the Four Horsemen show, wearing the shirt here with my friend Ryan Dawson and Eric Jackman, and we talk about conspiracy theories, foreign policy, current events, and then the rest of the time I'm just talking about work-related stuff, how the government's destroyed the working industry, made it harder for working people. I have foreign policy experts on, and lots of people you guys have had on, friends with Scott Horton and Dave Smith and those guys have a lot of those people on. And then I do social media for the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, and we're constantly making headlines over there and stirring things up. So, yeah, that's it. That's me.
How about you, bro?
And I'm Jose Galison. I'm part of Tower Gang, which is an offensive comedy podcast. If you come in there and say I'm offended, just know we don't care, and we'll probably laugh at you. I also have the No Way Jose show. That's where I do my more serious content. I cover libertarian theory, conspiracies, generally whatever just interests me. It's just kind of my outlet for that. Probably the thing I'm best known for is my coverage of the OKC, the Oklahoma City bombing thing. That's why I have the shirt on. Terrence Hickey didn't kill himself. That's what dragged me into it. The character of Terrence Hickey was an American hero. He had a very incredulous death and ruled a suicide immediately. And I think he's an American hero that needs to be remembered. And I think there are people out there that need to be held to account for his death.
Right on. We also got Phil Labonte back in the house.
What's up, everybody? I am back from the left coast. I am Phil Labonte, lead vocalist for All That Remains. I don't know Jose or Reed, and I disavow everything they have to say.
The second part of that's true.
It's too late.
My friend Ian.
Hi, everyone. Ian Crossan coming at you. I've got some good news on Bucko. He came back from his vet journey today, and he's gained a quarter pound in the last week.
Wow, that's a lot for a little fella.
It is a lot for a guy his size. It is very promising.
Man,
People are
this
very happy.
stem cell technology.
Stem cells and state of mind. It's been very calm, peaceful.
The prayers.
Yes, I tell him how good he is, how healthy he is, how I'm lucky to be with him, and he seems to enjoy it. When I start doing push-ups, he gets up and starts moving around and eating big meats. Bucko's doing well. I think that's all I got to start it off. Jose, you and I did an episode of No Way Jose.
Yeah, we sure did.
That was hot.
It was a while back. I was poaching you for my Anarchist Handbook series, seeing if you were into Proton. You weren't, but we still had a great episode.
Right. I didn't know enough about the context of the data, but maybe we can get into it tonight. If we do go that direction, I don't know, we'll find out. And we also have this gorgeous human to my right.
Did you get a haircut?
Dupre.
Yeah, I was not going to say anything about it and kind of just not address it on the podcast, but I did get a haircut. You check out the Pop Culture Crisis from today if you want to see me get my haircut. It was good.
Still very handsome.
Wasn't me.
Thank you, guys.
All right, let's jump to this first story. This one,
right.
This story legit has me freaked out. I was hearing some rumors and some murmurs from Timcast.com. James O'Keefe accused of erratic behavior by 16 Project Veritas employees. James has become a power-drunk tyrant, said one unnamed employee in a letter submitted to the organization's board. Nobody's buying it. I've got my sources, and I'm not buying it. This is the letter that we were able to obtain through, let me just say, sources in New York media. Apparently, this had been circulating to a certain degree. And I want you to know a few things. One, this letter is signed by, I believe, 16 employees, accusing James O'Keefe of being a power-drunk tyrant, and he is exactly who he pontificates on who we should be exposing. Now, this letter includes very important bits of information and context, which leads me to believe, I think there are people trying to oust James O'Keefe not because of any of these perceived grievances. I think they're trying to just remove him as an element of Project Veritas because, I mean, he's the guy. He is Veritas. I would put it this way. If you're an organization with 65 employees and you generate millions plus in donor revenue, I imagine the board members are thinking like, hey, the one problem we have in terms of control of this money is James O'Keefe. He's an ideological figurehead who believes in a mission and founded this. This happens with big companies all the time. It's like in Spider-Man. Remember when Willem Dafoe is playing Harry Osborn and he's like, do you have any idea how much I've sacrificed? And they're getting rid of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You get rid of James O'Keefe from this organization, and you are free to use that money however you see fit. The problem is, I don't think anyone's going to support him. Now, as we mentioned, they're saying that they were bullied, that he's a tyrant. Let me read for you the top note, because they certainly had to include this. It says, the opinions, data shared, and anecdotes were compiled by 1/3 of the Project Veritas staff, representing every department. Not all signed this letter, but all had compelling reason to contribute. Some signatories have not been the subject of abuse nor witnessed any abuse, but found the corroborated behavior troubling and were willing to sign. You that means right there?
Sounds like a load of garbage to me.
Yeah, what did they sign exactly?
So imagine this. You work at Project Veritas. Someone walks up to you and says, we think James O'Keefe is bad and he's done these things. Will you sign a letter? And they say, sure. Next thing you know, the board comes together. There's a viral Twitter thread where one guy is saying, reporting, according to his sources, one of the board members who orchestrated this had a whole thing scripted in ousting James O'Keefe. So I've reached out to James. I've not heard from him. But admittedly, look, man, when I saw this and a few other stories today, I was like, dude,
I got questions, man.
It's getting crazy right now.
Okay, so first of all, if you sign your name to a paper that's making a statement, that's an indication that you are making the statement. And if you didn't see the things that you're signing on to, that's fraud, or at least could be construed as fraud. So don't sign something that you don't believe in.
I think that's what the disclaimer's for, though, isn't it? Yeah. To make sure that to say, look, I didn't see this, but there was a disclaimer saying that I didn't see this. But I think that James is a bad person.
It needs to be more fleshed out than just an introduction with like some of these people. Like it needs to be on the signatories. You need to see who didn't see it, who is just following along and signing for the fun or because they feel like okay, and who actually witnessed the things. That needs to be very implicit.
It should be.
Ian, what it is sign this if you don't like him, okay?
That's really what isn't that the vibe that you pick up? It's essentially, it's like people that have some kind of incentive to not work for James O'Keefe, whether it be people that want control of Project Veritas, like on the board or whatever, if he's inhibiting activities they want, because he is ideological, which is the point of Project Veritas. Like the whole point of it is he's ideological and they're looking to, uncover bias and stuff. So I think that it seems like it's all emotionally motivated, with people that have some kind of, some kind of benefit from James O'Keefe not running Project Veritas.
To play devil's advocate on the side of the people that are creating this letter, because I love James and his work, is that maybe in the last year stress has been getting to James. Like I feel like I can empathize with what he's been going through the last year. Like I saw him tweet out, like, I'm not suicidal, by the way. Like, you don't tweet that out if you're not stressed out. Like, obviously,
no, I don't buy it. Look at this. I don't believe this. I literally don't believe it. I've had people saying like, Tim must be so stressed out, and it's like, dude, I'm like, people make up stories about you, man. Look at this.
Make up a lot.
At Democracy Partners trial in public, I was yelled at in front of jurors because he was hungry, and then he took the 8-month pregnant woman's sandwich. Like, come on, man. Yeah. Like, am I supposed to believe that James O'Keefe like walked up to an 8-month pregnant woman was like, "Give me your sandwich, I'm hungry," and snatched it from her? That sounds like something someone made up to make him sound bad.
Well, right, because if I take something from you, it could be because I went over and grabbed it out of your hand, or it could be because you offered it to me and then I took it.
I will. Sorry, I really don't think that. I don't think that the person that's accusing James. I don't think they're saying that the child gave him the sandwich. I think that they're
an 8-month pregnant woman.
Oh, okay. So, well, I don't feel like
he might have been like, "Hey, look, I'm hungry. Can I have that?" And she's like, "Okay."
Maybe I'm wrong.
On your suicide point, Ian. I mean, I'd have to know the context, but I know it's a common thing. Like literally, I start out from the beginning with the Yiki thing about the suicide. So I don't know the context in which he said it. It could have been like a snarky remark with O'Keefe with the kind of things he covered. He's obviously alluding like, "Hey, if something happens to me, it wasn't me."
That's exactly. It was like a tweet.
Yeah.
Like he just said it in a tweet, just a couple sentences. Elon's been doing some similar things. I'm sure he's under an immense amount of stress right now.
I've talked about how people claimed I went to their house in Boston and walked in their house at 2 a.m. and turned the TV on. And people tweet that kind of stuff and they believe it. Mm-hmm. I look at this and I'm like, James walked up to a pregnant woman and stole her sandwich?
Yeah. That's the thing. Take is not steal. He might have asked her and she said yes, but not been happy about it.
So consider this too. It may be that they're greatly exaggerating these things. Look, man, I kind of feel like, I'll put it this way. I worked for nonprofits. Imagine you have an organization founded by somebody else. They're ideologically driven. We have a mission. This is what we're going to do, and this is why we do it. And you're like, I want $5 million in cash. This organization's got $50 million, but James won't let me pay myself. We got to get rid of James. These are the kind of thing that happens these are the kind of things that happen at big companies after a long period of time. They want to get rid of the person in charge who's motivated by a mission. There's a saying that a buddy of mine was an entrepreneur, said, some people are good at starting companies and some people are good at running companies. Some people are founders, some people are CEOs. Somebody founds a company and then they hand it off to the CEO. The CEOs are very different from the founders. So my view of this is just my personal opinion and my bias. Because like this sandwich thing really is there. And then there's also something else I want to show you. If I would, let me first ask you guys this. When you think of Project Veritas, who do you think of?
James O'Keefe.
Hands down.
Yeah.
James O'Keefe is Project Veritas. That's not what they think. Here's an image. Look at this. There is honestly no Project Veritas without us. Look, partially true. This is our moment to make history. I hope James can realize we're doing this out of love for the mission.
Yeah, that's all created in their own head. When they start saying that they're doing things out of love, that are bad for a person, that's rationalizing doing something they know is immoral and bad. So I think that Tim's right on. I think that they're motivated by
It could be tough love.
No. Ousting him like this abruptly? Yeah, I don't know. I worked for several nonprofits, all right?
Not in this context either.
And here's what happens. Because these organizations don't function like the same kind of companies. People who work here work for a mission. They're not. Part of the reason you get paid less when you work at a nonprofit is because you're doing something you want to do for a mission. And so at every single nonprofit office I worked, these are all events, fundraising, street canvassing, etc. They had a policy, all of them, to fire every single person in the office the moment a person starts expressing demoralization. I mean, like morale. And so the fear was, if somebody starts getting upset and feeling aggravated or aggrieved, they'll go to a person in another room and go, yeah, what's going on, man? And they're like, nothing, what are you doing? I'm so sick of this, man. Like, James was talking to me and I'm tired of it, man. Like, you know what I'm talking about, right? James has yelled at you. Yeah, I mean, sometimes. And then what happens is the negativity and the demoralization starts spreading from person to person, where they get angrier and angrier. Then they all start going to each other. This has happened at every office I've worked. My argument's always been, you need to have a company-wide meeting. You need to have a pizza party. You need to make people feel good. You can't just fire everybody, but this is what they do. They churn and burn. They just burn through people. I'm wondering if a component of this is somebody who wants James O'Keefe ousted from the organization, wants control of the assets and resources, is going around telling people like, yeah, like that time he yelled at you, remember? And they're like, oh, yeah, and they took that woman's sandwich. Yeah, he did do that. And then a week later, they're like, remember when you told me that he yelled at you and took that woman's sandwich? Yeah, we wrote that down, signed the paper, and they go, oh, okay.
The thing is, once you make accusations against people, too, regardless of what the truth is and regardless of how easy it is to disprove it, they'll run with that narrative. So in New Hampshire, for example, there was this senator race going on. There was Don Baldock against Maggie Hassan. And Joa from Breaking the Flaw, who's a co-host on Free Talk Live with me, he was at this protest and he was definitely, being annoying and getting in people's faces, but he never touched anybody, never laid a hand on anyone. And Don Baldock basically just lied and said that he attacked him and hit him. And, there was video footage of everything that was going on, and we released it from the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, showing that they never touch each other at all or anything. But it just ran with it, and then the Democrats were picking it up, too, even though they could use this as an attack against Baldock. They knew that it would have been very easy to say, like, look, this guy isn't telling the truth. But just because a narrative was put out there, it's impossible to disprove it, even if you have all the video footage and everything. So,
well, that's because there is a motivated block of people a block of people that are motivated to believe it, or at least to spread it, even if they don't actually believe it.
Pile-on culture.
Yeah,
which is like it's a tough justification to not utilize false accusations against your enemy. Because it's like they're your enemy and you need to win. If it's the combat state of mind conflict, anything to get the job done in those situations. But when like the culture, when you're having communication, it's like, I mean, I know that desire. Like, I want this so bad that I'm willing to accept falsehoods to get it. It's just not the right ethics.
I think that's sloppy tactics, though. I think that the move, if you're smart, you sit back, you evaluate the battlefield, you wait, you find something accurate, something that will literally pierce the enemy's heart, if you will, and that's what you go for. Like, I mean, obviously, maybe you can make disinformation overwork for you sometimes, but I think in the long run, it's a failing strategy. But
sometimes it's just a really long run. You wish it would go faster.
I'm not so confident that it actually is a failing strategy. I mean, all's fair in love and war is a phrase for a reason. Underhanded tactics frequently work, even if they're underhanded. And I think that you see that in modern politics pretty clearly. I mean, it's not rare for a politician to lie about their opponent or to exaggerate or to pick up a Republican that attacks a Republican. It's not unusual for a Democrat to pick up the attack if the person is leading, So I really do think that the all's fair in love and war thing is predominant in at least this particular issue.
But how do people feel about the government right now? How do they feel about Congress? I mean, that's my long. It might be. It's a kind of how much your time preference. How long are you willing to look out in the future? So here we are now. We're like the Congress is it's like lowest level ever.
But everyone hates Congress for different reasons. Yes. You ask most people, and they are happy with their own Congress people. The people they don't like are the Congress people that get in the way of the policies that their congressperson is looking to push forward.
After last night, we did a show at Congress in Lauren Boebert's office. I gained a new love for those people and that building and the Congress itself. It felt very inviting. Like it a lot of people really want to do good, and they have different tactics.
It was real inviting.
I'm
One
trying
day.
really hard not to make a January 6th joke, Phil.
It was shocking how at home I felt there. How like good it felt. The people are like at this level of what we talk about on the show. Kind of like all of them are at this. I think. Then I guess there's a lot of probably older Congress people that aren't fired up, and those people are just like, paying the bill to get by. I'm not as interested in that mentality, but the young people that want to provoke change and stop crazy change is like, I'm all on board with that. So my Congress approval rating is up after yesterday, personally. It's
Wow.
But I will point out, we're not at war. This is not a war. So if people are using false accusations to get James ousted, it's not war, and all is not fair in legal battles. So if they're doing something underhanded, I think that's going to get some people in a lot of trouble.
So we have this video here, and it's from Project Veritas, and I don't know who this guy is. It says, busted, Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla relies on aggressive security tactics to escape Veritas journalists' questions. Do you know who this guy is? I'm not trying to be a dick to him. I don't know who he is.
Was his name Albert?
This guy right here, this journalist that they have.
Not yet.
So people started telling me, hey, they removed James O'Keefe, stripped him of his authority, put him on paid leave, have explained almost nothing. We had to get leaked this letter explaining what people were claiming, which sounds outlandish, and we've not gotten a response from James. Then they put out a video with some other dude that I don't know at the very least.
James Lalino, Project Veritas
James Lalino.
reporter, standing outside the Conrad Hotel in Washington, D.C.
I just got to say this, doesn't it? I tweeted this morning that all the drama was part of a plan because I was joking, and it was people took me seriously. I was like Steven Crowder on the Daily Wire, and me in the Quartering, and Veritas and James O'Keefe. You don't think there's a coincidence, do you? Phase 2 begins soon. And then people thought I was being serious. I was just pointing out why is all of this stuff happening right now? Yeah. And then, of course, later in the day, I put out an apology to Jeremy because I don't think any of us have any differences on the level of what our real cultural and ideological battles are in the culture war and with politics. There's no real reason for me to be personally mad at Jeremy or anything like that. Bickering like this, and I'll say that for me, I have no reason to even bring it up.
Sure, if he was trying to put microchips in you and track your movement, then I'd say you speak up.
Or sterilize kids, and things like that.
Central
planning.
planning.
That's why I'm watching the Veritas stuff, watching the Crowder stuff, and all of this happening in the past couple of weeks, and then these other stories about people these Republicans getting shot. I'm kind of like, hey, yo, let's not. I don't know, man. Look, y'all can tell me I'm wrong about everything. You can insult me. You can say, Tim, you did bad. I will accept all of that. I don't want this to fall apart. I will gladly accept. You can unsubscribe. You can unfollow. You can not be a member anymore. I will gladly step back and say the worst possible thing right now with all of this going on is infighting. And I'm sorry. I don't want this to happen. I don't want things to get worse. This freaks me out.
So I'm sure there's multiple levels of drama, but as far as the right having this civil war, I'm actually extremely glad it's happening. I think Jose might agree with me because it seems to be separating the wheat from the chaff in a lot of ways, like this whole DeSantis versus Trump stuff that's going on, and just seeing everyone turn on each other, seeing Matt Gaetz actually stand up against McCarthy being elected speaker, stuff like that. It's uncomfortable, but it's actually kind of forcing the right to evolve, if you know what I mean.
It is, but the reason I think Matt Gaetz is fantastic. I said this on the show the other day, and he brought it up that he's my favorite member of Congress, and I'm like, well, look, man, he defended Ilhan Omar, someone he shouldn't, on a principled ground that made sense, and I respect that. And then he voted to have her removed on a logical ground that made sense, and I'm like, I get what he's doing. He said he gives Speaker McCarthy an A rating now. They stood up. They did what they had to do. They stood up on principle. When it came to Swalwell and Schiff being removed from their committees, he said that makes sense. They lied about intelligence. I agree. He said removing Ilhan Omar because she said things you don't like doesn't seem to make sense. It doesn't sit well with me. However, Ilhan Omar voted to remove Marjorie Taylor Greene and Gosar, so that's the standard she set. So I'm like, that's actually logical. That makes sense. I can respect that tremendously. So when looking at the McCarthy stuff, that I'm in favor of. You know, them standing up to the establishment saying we get these concessions, but I don't see any net gain in all of us at the base level fighting with each other at all. I don't see any of us succeeding if all of us on the exact same time we all find reason to have beef with each other. You know what I mean?
It helps you identify good faith actors, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's really, yeah, I know it splits things up, and to me, I see like crises and stuff like this almost inevitable. I think you're almost better to make the best of it. And to what this was you're able to identify things. From here, you're able to see who your in-group was, who your out-group was, who's willing to act in good faith, who's not. I mean, that's not to say there are perfect actors on either side, but you can tell, throughout all this drama, there's been so many crazy claims, and it allows you to be like, yeah, I probably won't work with that person, probably not going to interact with them, et cetera, et cetera. You don't have to cause a problem over it, but it allows you to be able to see the battlefield, what's going on, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, this is the challenge that I basically see with all of this stuff is, you know, this should not be happening at Veritas at all. If they've got problems with James O'Keefe, they should not have handled this way. This is horrible mismanagement. Made me take stock of what I was doing, and I'm like, I shouldn't be so reckless and brash and arrogant at the same, because like I see that, and then it reflects on me. What am I doing? This is a bad way to handle it, especially if we're trying to be strategic and tactful, so that we can focus on issues like, I don't know, people smuggling eggs over the Mexican border because the prices are so insane. Like things we actually have to accomplish because we're concerned that they're letting non-citizens vote in Washington, D.C. or New York, or outright, as many people are pointing out, censorship due to people filing false privacy claims or legal challenges, exploiting the system to gain some kind of political power, and I can respect that. So at that point, I'm just like, yeah, I'm genuinely freaked out. Not to mention, you know what really does it is like we can have drama and whatever, and I'm kind of like, whatever. And then I see these two Republicans in Jersey get killed, and I'm kind of like, okay, guys, let's get serious. Let's get serious. You know what I mean?
We're lucky to be able to experience drama in a conversational way. We're very privileged in this society to be able to hash it out with words before it would ever come to anything other than that.
We can. You know, I put it this way. You mentioned it allows you to see who you might not want to work with and who you want to work with. We can see the camps, right? The audience sizes here and a different audience here, and there's some overlap, and some people get mad this way and some people get mad that way. And I'm just like, but why are we mad at each other? I shouldn't be doing that, because the people over there are doing really messed up stuff. They're lying to the American people. They're spreading false intelligence. They're putting ankle weights on a president who gave us the best economic numbers in a generation, and then resulted in us getting a Joe Biden who gives us some of the worst. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I think we've got to make sure we're focused on that stuff.
You know, I was thinking, well, you go for it, Rita.
You triggered him with the Trump economics.
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
Go ahead,
Well, I
Buck.
mean, that's I do have to address that. I mean, we were definitely, when Trump ran for president in 2016, he even said, we're living in a bubble. It's going to pop. This isn't actually a good economy. Until he was president, then suddenly it was the greatest economy in the world until it crashed when he's gone. You know, I don't think that has much to do with Trump or Biden or Obama. It's more about the Federal Reserve policies we had over that time. But that aside, I think it's important. I think the fox in the hen, or the wolf in sheep's clothing is more dangerous than the fox in the hen house. So like an obvious enemy is less of a threat because it's easy to point out. It's easy to say this person is dangerous and they're against what we stand for. When you have somebody, I would say like Trump, who virtue signals on a lot of important issues, but then 9 times out of 10, when it comes down to it, he goes along with whatever the establishment wants. I think that's more dangerous. I mean, under Biden, you've had legitimate right-wing opposition to what he's been doing. If Trump were still president right now, I don't think you'd have nearly the amount of solidified opposition to what's going on in the White House. I mean, because we saw that in 2020.
But when you look at wages and inflation, right when Joe Biden gets inaugurated, then right after he enacts a plethora of executive orders, you start to see a dramatic shift in wages starting to go down, and inflation starting to go up. So you think that was a coincidence? Or
No, I don't think it's coincidence. I mean,
yeah.
the CARES Act was the largest spending bill in U.S. history, signed by Donald Trump in March of 2020. The COVID Relief Act of 2020 was the second largest spending bill signed into law by President Trump in December of 2020. And so, sure, Biden's energy policy does nothing to help. It definitely makes it worse. But to act like printing trillions and trillions of dollars out of midair when we had a Republican president and locking the economy down, which wasn't his fault. I'm not blaming him. I mean,
it was Democrat governors.
Sure. Well, Republican governors too. It was both. Yeah. But to act like that wouldn't have, effects regardless of whether or not he gets elected. Like even if Donald Trump got reelected and was still president, you would have 95% of this inflation. The inflation is increasing the
disagree.
money supply. I mean,
I agree to the extent that the spending was bad, but also you take a look at for one, like obviously the energy policy of Joe Biden, but you take a look at a whole bunch of other things. I mean, they're enacting policy based on ideological ends. Joe Biden literally said he was going to end fossil fuels. Before the pandemic, the economy was the best numbers of our lives, obviously not during the pandemic. So if you get a knee-jerk reaction that results in mass spending and panic, but you have a tendency among Democrats for harsh and total lockdown, you get a Joe Biden who starts speaking about the lockdowns only to blue states and not red states. And then, previous to this, you had some red states saying no and opening back up. You get a Joe Biden that comes into office, enacts a bunch of policies. You get the Inflation Reduction Act, quote unquote, and then you watch in real time as inflation continually gets worse, stagnates at extremely high levels, or continues to get worse. Yeah, I think if Donald Trump was president, we'd probably have better economic policy. I think things would probably be recovering.
well, you got a DeSantis because you had Biden. I don't think you would have had a DeSantis under Trump. DeSantis, and I've got lots of issues with DeSantis, but when he was opposing the COVID regime in Florida, where Jose is living, I think a lot of that was because there was political will to have a dissenter to the official narrative that Joe Biden was putting out. With Donald Trump, I think that would have been a lot less likely. I think if you have a central authority figure that people can hate and they can actually oppose, not just like in a virtue signaling way and not just in an emotional way, but actually come out against it. That's how you get an actual...
I think a good example of what Reed's getting at is just a quick little thing. The majority of gun control gets pushed through under Republican presidents. And the reason why is because of exactly what he's saying. When you have someone like a Biden in office, you actually get a legitimate Republican pushback. Whereas you have somebody like a conservative in office, they're able to push through these huge bills or these things that would typically be not conservative because no one wants to rock the boat.
And I just want to clarify that if I had to compare Joe Biden with Donald Trump, I do prefer Donald Trump's policies to Joe Biden. I'm just talking from a reactionary perspective.
You're coming at it from a libertarian's perspective.
Sure.
So the underlying statement that you're making is Donald Trump is not a libertarian, which I don't think anyone...
He's not even a Republican.
Well, I mean, he's a progressive Republican, probably along
he's
the
a
lines
90s
of like
Democrat.
That's fair and that's fine. But if you're arguing that Donald Trump is not libertarian enough for you, that's a legitimate argument because Donald Trump wasn't trying to be libertarian.
Well,
it's fair to say that Donald Trump isn't libertarian enough for libertarian people, and I mean most of your criticisms I agree because I think I prefer a smaller government, but holding Donald Trump to the libertarian standard and saying, well, he's not a libertarian, and when everybody that's a Donald Trump supporter is going to go, duh, we don't care.
I don't think that's
you
what
know what I
Reed's
mean.
saying.
That's not my argument.
My interplay between the different parties.
My argument is actually to achieve libertarian policies is easier on a state level under Joe Biden than it would be under Donald Trump because it's easier to rally opposition to Joe Biden. Like stuff that's happened in Florida, stuff that's happened in New Hampshire. It's very easy because it's easy to rile up your right-wing neighbor and say, do you want Joe Biden to be able to have federal jurisdiction over what happens in New Hampshire? And they'll say, hell no. And they'll,
Let's bring up this story then.
Sure.
We have this from Timcast.com. Second New Jersey Republican elected official shot and killed within a week. Authorities have not identified a motive, but confirmed the victim was the intended target. This is Milford Borough Councilman Russell Heller was murdered by a coworker at a PSENG facility. So we don't know exactly why. Maybe it's not political, perhaps. But we also had Eunice Dwumfer, who was shot to death in a vehicle outside her home. And when asked if this was political, the DA said that they didn't. They said something along to the effect of, please don't make, we don't want to answer that right now, or something like that. So I don't know if this is political, but we certainly are seeing extremist rhetoric. We just had a bunch of leftists storm into a Capitol building, insurrection or whatever. And in the previous segment, we were talking about, Reed, you were mentioning that it's easier to drum up opposition to, legitimate opposition to Joe Biden to get in Republican or libertarian policies because you have, that president. And it would be a lot more difficult under Trump. But I guess looking at this, I kind of feel like even with a President Joe Biden, the media is still screaming the right is the deep threat. You still have, is it a coincidence that 2 Republican elected officials were just shot and killed in New Jersey in 1 week? Maybe. Is it political? It might not be. I'm kind of leaning towards 2 Republican officials being shot and killed in the span of a week. I at least lean towards the hypothesis we should look into whether this is political, considering the rhetoric from the media and everything like that. So if we've got a Democrat in office, shouldn't things be calming down, at least as far as the leftist rhetoric is? It's more hyped up and amped up than ever.
Yeah, well, I
because
think
they're
the
revolutionaries that we have to worry about.
I think the hyped up rhetoric is what causes a lot of the right wing opposition to the Democrats in charge. So, for example, like people who didn't pay attention to politics at all 4 years ago, after the last 2 years, when they're suddenly a science denying, conspiracy theorist or whatever, and they're an enemy of intelligence agencies or whatever, suddenly they start to care about FBI, the FBI having as much power as it does. They start caring about how much control the government has over what you can put into your body, all these different things. So, yes, there is a lot more political turmoil, but I think that has actually woken up a lot of people who wouldn't have said things that sound like what I say nowadays. 4 years ago, they never would have dreamed of it, but now it's just their regular rhetoric because they've become so used.
Shifting the Overton window.
Yes.
The chaos kind of produced by a weak president forces people to establish local order. If you don't, they won't do it for you. I think that
that's
more
part
apparent.
of it too. I mean, that's not what I meant, but that's part of it too, is the weakness of Joe Biden. People gravitate toward their governor if their governor is, strong. And I like that decentralization. I would rather people, invest in their own state government instead of worrying about what the federal government's doing.
I'm with you on the wolf in sheep's clothing being more dangerous than the fox in the hen house, except that the obvious fool here, Joe, I'm calling you out because you surrendered to the Taliban. The absolute mishandling of our military and the loss of life accrued by Joe Biden because of that surrender.
He surrendered to the Taliban and he surrendered to China. The fact that he allowed the balloon to just cross the country without doing anything, and now it's coming out that they were monitoring, and there was radio frequencies that they were monitoring. He's neglected the national security of the U.S. entirely.
So it has caused people to step up at a local level and take control of their lives. But whether or not we're better off having a weak president, I don't know, because that loss of life in Afghanistan is that's going to hang on my.
I just got to talk about Afghanistan real quick, because the problem with Afghanistan is that we stayed too long. Donald Trump made a deal with the Taliban that we would be out of Afghanistan. I think it was May 1st of 2020. Was that 2021? Yeah, 2021.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then Joe Biden came in, and he was an arrogant ass, and he said, no, we are going to leave on September 11th because I'm not going to have Donald Trump's stupid Afghanistan withdrawal plan. So he stayed an extra, 4.5 months.
No.
Didn't get people out. And the Taliban.
That's not the problem with Afghanistan. The problem with Afghanistan was he got the combat troops out. What you do is you point guns at all the bad guys and get your people out, and leave the guys with the guns pointed at the bad guys on the ground. And the guys with the guns, they leave last.
Or-
Joe Biden got everybody out, and that was the problem. So
People were being killed on cars outside the Air Force Base by Taliban.
He abandoned Bagram Air Force Base.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to withdraw from Afghanistan, and I agree, we should not have been there. We shouldn't have been there at all.
Yeah.
But the one thing you do is you tell the local security partners, the Afghan forces, hey, go set up security over the next 2 weeks to lock down the Air Force Base, to secure these areas. They needed to make sure that they had logistics for their aircraft, for the helicopters, for the jets or whatever they were using. One of the problems we heard was that there were people, Afghan security forces, literally flying at the time when Biden abandoned the country, and all of a sudden all their logistics get cut off and they have no idea what's going on. The Taliban, without communication, there was no defense force. And so we learned in the middle of the night they abandoned the Air Force Base, saying nothing, and locals went in and started looting the place. They gave everything to the Taliban.
That's why I call it a surrender.
The
you surrender equipment or items or people.
Well, what Reed and Jose are talking about is strategy, which is the way that Biden came in and wanted to have the exit on September 11th for a look. But the major problem with the withdrawal from Afghanistan was tactical. It was the way that they actually did it. They didn't set security to get the non-combatants out, to get the people that were helping the Americans, whether they be Afghans or whether they be other countries or whatever, the U.S. nationals, all the civilians, all the whether you like CIA or not, get all the CIA assets out, get all the assets out, and then you take big army out. Then you take the guys with the guns out. And the guys with the guns all point guns at everybody and say, no, you're not doing anything. And then they all get on a plane and leave. But you don't take the security forces out first.
Yeah,
It was the major problem was tactical.
I agree with you on that. Like, I mean, there's no disagreement that the civilians come out first. But when you make a deal with the Taliban, which is the most official government in Afghanistan, we will be gone in May, which is what Donald Trump told them in 2020.
Yes.
And then Joe Biden comes in and drags his feet.
Yes.
Doesn't get the people out of there. And like you said, take the military out last, be out by May. That's what he should have done.
Yes.
Well, I argue that if you give your enemy a date, I'll be out by January 1st. January 1st comes and you're like, I'm not ready. This is war, dude.
Yeah,
okay?
exactly.
You wait till I leave because we are at war. I mean, they're lucky they're still alive. The Americans could have nuked the entire country if they wanted to. And
Well, they look at it the same way, though. The Taliban, if you've made a deal with them, like, we're going to be gone by this time, and then you're not. I mean, they feel the same way that we feel about them attacking our guys. It's like, look, dude, you said you were going to be gone. You're in our country.
And that wasn't even the first day I think we've given them. We've kept them jerking their chain for forever, I believe, setting date after date after date. There was at least multiple other ones from what I recollect. I'm not as good informed.
It just ended up being like, I think it was actually September 1st when we left. It ended up being.
I'm all about the horrendous. Why were we even there in the first place? It's insane. Get out as soon as possible, but it wasn't done right.
No disagreement there.
I think it would have been a crap show either way, to be honest. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think there's definitely probably room to say, could have been handled better. Maybe Trump's plan was better. I don't know. But at the end of the day, like, I don't think, like, let's be real. The Taliban's the Taliban, and we didn't really have anything set in place, nor would we ever have something in place to resist this. So it was going to be a crap show no matter what. It's just a matter to what degree. Now, I think, like... Okay.
I think the military knows that there is a proper way to withdraw forces from a hostile area. I think the military, I think
there are better ways, probably. Yes.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I don't think there's going to be any situation that ends up looking good.
Well, I mean, I don't know, but I don't know. I think that they probably could have kept. I think they probably could have kept things.
Could have kept down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like, you don't need bombs going off, and you don't need to take your security force out before you get your.
You also had Trump's generals lying to him about the status of how things were in those countries.
That was a train wreck.
Yeah, I was saying this the other night with the members of Congress. If we were able to get another Trump term without the weights on his legs, with Russiagate and the other lies and the manipulations and nonsense, I think things would go swimmingly. It would be amazing what we would see. I genuinely believe Trump wanted us out of these foreign wars. I genuinely believe he wanted us to have no involvement as world police. I genuinely believe he wants to secure our borders, bring factories back, and start improving these things. I think, like you guys were saying, he's a 90s Democrat or whatever.
Yeah.
But what you get with him is Russiagate, investigations, lies, manipulations, Ukraine-gate, impeachment scandal. And so even with all of that, I've heard from so many people back in 2019 about how it was the best year of their lives in terms of making money and seeing their companies grow and getting better jobs. Now we have Joe Biden and everything's just bad. I mean, it's bad. I talk about this local racetrack, the horse track. They want to reopen the restaurant so you can hang out, have a burger, and watch the horses run. That sounds like an awesome time, but they can't find any workers. We tried getting people to come out here and do work on our HVAC, and they just ghost us. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's crazy how messed up it is right now. I wonder if you guys listening at home are experiencing similar things where, like, people just don't want to work. And I think what we were hearing the other day from Byron Donalds is that with the stimulus package and the money that was being given out, pushed largely by Democrats, you get demand high, but supply low because nobody is working to produce anything. It's going to drive prices way up.
Oh, yeah, no disagreement there. And this isn't to excuse any of Biden's policies. Biden's policies have 100% made things way worse. But we were already living in a bubble when, after the 2008 crash, things started building up. And then we were living on low interest rates. Things were artificially, more popping than they should have been. There was going to be something that pricked the bubble eventually. If I were Donald Trump, I personally wouldn't have wanted to get reelected in the end of 2020. I would have read the writing on the wall and been like, it was things are going to suck next year and the year after, regardless of who the president is.
It's the
Biden's definitely made things worse, but...
Yeah, it's the boom bust cycle. It's just we print a bunch of money. The money gets artificially inflated. Seems to be a better deal than it is, and we convince ourselves that's great, and so we keep on doing it until eventually the floor falls out and right back down again.
Go
Oh, that's the vibe I get with Jim Cramer when there's a quote where he was like, "This is the best year of our lives," or the best, But I think what happened is that the inflation balloon had expanded to its capacity, so it was like, "This is the biggest the balloon has ever been."
Guys, I don't think that the bubble's popped.
I mean, not completely. The
not
floor is a lot
completely.
lower.
The air's coming out fast.
I'm like, it's like if you're of the opinion that the economy was overheated and they printed too much money and things are gonna get bad. If you're of that opinion, things have not even come close to how bad they're going to get because the bubble in the dollar has not gone away.
Me and Serge were actually talking about this before. It's funny in the before show, whatever thing he does. Actually, my buddy Clint Russell, we talked about this before, and he has a theory that he thinks likely probably in the next 10 years, China will probably collapse monetarily in some form. Now, that'll likely cause some sort of deflationary pressure, which will then boost us back up. And so then we get that juice that woo, everything's great, it's awesome. But
he said China?
China, just because the way they expand, how we expand militarily, they expand with money because they're far more communist, and they've it exponential over time. It's building up. So I mean, it's just a matter of, it's the same idea with the boom bust cycle over here, but to a greater degree. So it's just a matter of when does this pop? I don't know. I would say likely. I mean, I don't know. It could be papered over. Something else could happen. But let's say their money did bust. That would cause a deflationary pressure over here to where we kind of sort of get sucked back into a boom. And if that happens, then what happens when we convince ourselves we're great all over again, and we're like, oh, no problem, and just keep on going like we do, and then the floor comes again later, and it's even lower.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, if that's the case, then you're essentially everyone's got a little bit of time to prepare, or a little more time to prepare.
That's better. But you got to be mindful and look at it from a bigger picture so you understand that.
You can still move to New Hampshire. It's not too late.
Yeah. So like you were saying, the U.S. was spread out militarily, kind of like the British Empire with India, for instance. And then India had a revolution and Britain lost all that revenue coming out of India. So would it be a Chinese economic revolution where like Chinese companies are in Afghanistan, but one day those people will be like, actually, we live here?
I just mean they're inflating their money at a higher, how do I put this? At a higher rate than we are. So they're going like this, whereas we're going like this. So they're more likely they're going to boom at some or bust at some point. Like the money is not sound with what they're doing. Like you can't just print money forever. Eventually, it goes down. That's why they have whole ghost cities and stuff like that where no one lives. Yeah.
I mean, it's not just their money, but it's also their architecture and everything. Like if you look at the ghost cities, like he's talking, they have the homeless problem, but they also have these giant cities that nobody lives in.
It's almost like communism is a bad form of economics.
Almost.
I know they're a mix. They're sort of like a mixed thing. I get it.
When world military superpowers start to go bankrupt, they tend to look outside of their borders for resources. Like the Nazis, the Germans, when they were destroyed after World War I, they almost had, you could argue, no choice but to invade foreign countries to repopulate or repurpose.
But like if they lose their pipelines.
But with the petrodollar, we don't have to worry about that the way past empires had to, because people are forced to use our currency to buy things. So we don't got to do anything. We just point guns and then say, use our money or else.
We just got to aid in a genocide in Yemen, so the Saudis will keep, printing dollars, printing oil and dollars. But
Peter Zeihan, are you guys familiar with how to pronounce his last name?
Zeihan.
He's a brilliant guy. He was on Rogan a few weeks ago. On Rogan, that's so funny, riding on his shoulders. But he said that China would be gone in 5 years. I don't know what exactly he meant. Yeah, and that we'd be. It was almost like I'm not hopeful. I don't know what to think about that because, the Soviet Union dissipated relatively peacefully. So.
Yeah, they broke up.
I don't know that. I'm not sure it was relatively peacefully. I mean, there was a lot of turmoil in.
Preferable,
just for how big it is.
It's preferable to like an international war, but I think if you go to like the former Soviet states that are no longer Soviet states, the 90s were real rough. There's still people in Russia that long for the days of the Soviet Union because they remember the 90s. And the 90s were really, really, really hard in Eastern Europe and the former Soviet states. And they don't look at freedom the way that we do because freedom for them was full of corruption and a lot of bad people that had influence in the state before just started taking things and saying, well, me and my boys with the guns now own this refinery or whatever. So it wasn't so peaceful. We didn't see the effects here in the U.S. of the breakup of the Soviet Union so clearly.
Let's jump to this next topic. We got some Timcast. It's big news, everybody. I know our libertarian guests are really excited to hear. Meta has reinstated Trump's Facebook and Instagram with heightened penalties. Other public figures whose accounts are reinstated from suspensions related to civil unrest will also face similar penalties. But there it is, everybody. MAGA Man is back. Donald Trump can now post on Facebook and Instagram, and he should. And he should also be on Twitter. But,
Will he? Or
I don't know, man. I think he's got a contract with Truth Social that says he can't for a certain period of time or something like that.
Doesn't he?
because I want to be clear,
Social?
Trump, his social media presence was by far my favorite thing about him. Like I loved his Twitter. I loved how he talked about.
You
John
don't
McCain.
say, Reed. You don't say.
I might have taken some.
You're kidding, right?
It's kind of like Tim was bringing up earlier with if he hadn't had his like weights, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's a perfect guy. I'm not saying he's like Ron Paul or something. But if government
Ron
didn't,
Paul's a perfect guy, huh?
Yeah, well, not perfect, but he's the closest idea of a politician I can think of. But if he wasn't weighed down, if the government didn't government, it'd be super awesome. Yes, the incentives point a certain way, and like it was, if you like, for example, I think if like a Ron Paul got in office, I think it would probably be a similar thing. Either he'd take a ride down in Dallas, or he would end up, some way being tied down this way or that to where he wasn't really able to get the things he wanted done the same way Trump was. Because there's certain incentives in place when you start rocking the boat, it doesn't work out well usually.
Yeah, you got to have the American population rock the boat for you, and then you just make sure that you don't veto their changes when they rock it to where it needs to be rocked to. But if you go up there and try to become the president and make all the changes yourself, you're just an easy target.
I mean, I honestly don't have any faith at all in politics in general, but especially at a federal level. I think once you get down more local, you get more to where you can actually have results, even down to the individual. I think as an individual, you can make your life better more than you can fix the federal government.
You don't think Trump is perfect?
No.
Have you not seen his body when he's golfing?
It's true.
Very bigly.
He might be the most healthy president ever.
Too healthy,
The
actually.
healthiest.
Too healthy. Yeah, too good of health.
He had to
slow down.
fatten up for the role.
I do miss him. I'm glad that we're starting to see him more. And I mean, I just loved the comedic value
Oh
he
my
brought
God,
to
yeah.
everything.
It
It
was
was just
so
so
much
good.
fun.
He initiated Clown World.
So
I really
much
did.
fun.
I want to meet him because I'm tired of talking about him like third person. Donald, come on the show. And what doesn't he not own Truth Social? So how could did he sign?
You
his
guys
own?
got to get my
You
friend Eric Jackman on here. He does the perfect Trump impersonations. You got to check out Jackman Radio on Twitter.
Do a full
Everybody, go
episode
follow.
in Trump.
Oh
Trump
God,
character.
Trump has seen him act as himself, and he approved of it. He had him come up on stage and congratulated him and everything. Phil's seen it. It's great.
It's a good Trump.
He's losing weight though. He's been getting in shape. So good on you, buddy.
Yeah,
but
he's
you're
trying
not
to
pulling Trump
emulate
anymore.
Trump's perfect health. So
awesome. So Tim, you were saying even as an owner of a company, you can
have contract with yourself. So, I mean, I don't think he owns Truth Social 100%. I think they're a SPAC, so they have shareholders and stuff like that. And then in order to do this deal, if people are going to buy shares of this company, they need to know that Trump's not going to abandon it.
Yep.
So the company says,
to increase his own valuation. He made a deal that he wouldn't leave. He would.
But it's not just him. There's
exclusive.
other people involved in the company who say, if we're going to do this, if we're going to work a company with you, you got to agree not to go to other platforms. So my understanding is that he can post on Truth, and then he can link to his Truth post. So he can post on Twitter something like, I called that fat pig out, and then link to Truth, and then Truth shows the bigger one.
only Rosie O'Donnell.
And there's like a time frame too. He can post it on Truth, and after a certain amount of time, he can then post it on Twitter or somewhere else. But he's got to get back on these platforms, man.
So
And
didn't
we need
Elon
it.
say he was going to he wasn't going to allow just nothing but posting to another platform? Wasn't there something he said about
I
that?
think he walked that back.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, everyone got really mad at him about that. But that's literally the policy of every social media platform. If you use the platform just to link out to a different platform, you can get suspended or get your post removed. YouTube especially, they'll ban you outright. Because people would do this thing where they'd make a live stream saying, go watch the show on Twitch instead. And then YouTube's like, nah, you can't do that, delete. So Elon says, we'll do the same thing. If you're only linking out to somebody else, we're going to, you can't do that. Everybody got mad. And Twitter's a different platform,
So Truth Social is owned by Trump Media and Technology Group, which is owned by Donald Trump, as far as I can tell, and Devin Nunes is the CEO of the parent company. But that parent company, Trump Media and Technology Group, merged with a company called Digital World Acquisition Corp. in 2021, October. I don't know who owns Digital
DWAC.
World. Yeah, DWAC.
Yeah.
I don't know who owns that exactly, but I'm about to find out.
I love how, like, instead of tweets, they're literally called truths. Isn't that every time?
It's so weird. I don't like the brand. You don't. It's not a verb.
I know, but it's so Trump. It's so Trumpy. I just
But, like,
love it.
Truth is subjective. Like
So
look,
is Trump.
Look, that spaceship on the table is pointing to the left.
Easy.
But for you, that
Easy.
spaceship on the table is pointing to the right.
Easy, Mr. Postmodernism.
Both of our truths are correct, and like literally that spaceship model you see right in front of you, it's pointing to the left. But to you, that's not true. It
depends what
to
kind
you,
of
it's
claims
pointing
you're
to the
making,
right.
but yeah.
So our perspective is guiding our truth. So I don't like that he's claiming that he has the truth.
I don't disagree with the concept you're drawing, but it's Trump, so I just love it that every time he says something, it's a truth. You know, it's very much the way he thinks. So
Yeah, he's truthing. That's all. That's the only thing he ever does. Everything is a truth. But we need him back. I don't know why he's not posting. Maybe it's contractual obligations.
I have a feeling
But I think
it's
it's
that.
time.
He's just not in touch with the base anymore.
So Tim, do you think he would win? Because I've been amazed how many people don't think he would win now.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I see the propaganda where they claim that Joe Biden would beat him by 8 points, but I just roll my eyes at that. I'm not sure it matters if it's Trump or ham sandwich, so long as ballot harvesting and universal mail-in voting is the machine by which we're determining our elections.
In 2016, he was a wrench in the spokes of the transition of the liberal world order to the new world order. Like, he got us out of Trans-Pacific Partnership day one,
Yeah.
and they, without him even knowing what he was doing, probably he was smashing up the plan, and they wanted him out. But now I think the plan is out in the open, and it's like kind of amorphous. We're obviously not going techno-communist. I don't know anyone that's down to put microchips and be spied on all day by a corporation and be told when and what you can say.
Yeah.
So I think maybe there's a lot more potential for him, but he's older. I mean, Congress want Matt Gaetz. They really are bullish on Trump.
I just don't think he's in touch with his base.
Yeah,
The whole
I agree
vax
with
stuff,
those,
and then this was definitely your thing, so I'll pass it off to you. But I don't like. I mean, I'm not a Republican, but most people I hang out with, those are like I feel like that's the base that he had, the kind of people I interact with on day-to-day thing. They're all like DeSantis. You know, that's what they're all about. That's what everyone's about these days. So unless he changes his messaging, maybe gets on Twitter, gets riles things back up again, maybe. I don't know. I don't see it right now, but the lot can change between now and then.
Gets like a really young, famous, energetic vice president. That could breathe a lot of life into the campaign.
I mean, he needs to get back into the public space. He's been putting out these videos where he talks about his policy plans, and he's very much been addressing culture war issues, but he needs to just get on Twitter. And that's a tough thing, you know. Elon Musk buys Twitter. I'm sure Elon is like, please, Trump, come back, because it's gonna set the platform on fire, and like in a good way, it's gonna light it up. Trump's got to get out there and post those tweets where he calls Coke garbage.
Yeah.
Remember that one? I'll still keep drinking that garbage though. That's what we want to see.
He needs to be Trump. Trump needs to be
That's right.
Trump on Twitter. He needs to be Trump in the domain where people are going to see him most, and he needs to be the off the cuff Trump.
When I speak of my haters, I speak of them with love. It's not their fault they're born effed up.
I love it.
Not having Twitter, you are invisible. Like, even at my level, I just got my Twitter back this morning. Lost it in October of 2021, and without it, like, it's hard to network with people. And the same with his level, at the level he is, it's hard to be in touch with the world, because Twitter is how politics travels now.
Yeah, you become invisible in the political space,
Yeah.
not necessarily in the entire entertainment zone.
Sure.
Like, I don't know I mean, Mr. Beast has a Twitter profile, but I mean, it's all YouTube. You know, once you get big on YouTube for cartoons and making people laugh, you don't really need Twitter. It's just like but if you're in politics, you absolutely need to be connected to that, I think, to understand. I don't know, man. I wish I knew if he was on contract, exclusive Truth Social contract, because where the hell is he? Where's he
Well,
been?
outside of that, there's a conversation about how do we protect our rights on social media if what you're saying is true. You can't network without Twitter. It's very difficult. Technology is being granted to one political faction to use, you know, however they see fit. Another faction is getting banned and suspended. How do you solve for that? I mean, I don't think you guys are going to be all about government regulation in that regard.
Yeah, what's crazy is, you know, you guys had Jeremy Kauffman on last year, I think, who's a friend of mine in New Hampshire. He created Odyssey, which was like a free speech alternative to YouTube, and the feds have been going after him like crazy. There's been all sorts of court cases. Right now, Ben Swan, who I have networked with a little bit, he's trying to create a new platform called Sovereign, And all these different platforms are just learning from the mistakes of the previous ones, where the federal government can basically screw them over and trying to figure out how to work their way around it. But I think that is the alternative, is like making just making alternatives.
On the point we were talking about with Trump earlier, like his feet being way down. Same thing with this. Like if you're trying to create different ways for this to work, we saw with Twitter, and it's pretty clear with Facebook and probably other social media as well. They're infiltrated with feds. They get corporate welfare, this, that. But the little guys like Odyssey, all these other upstarts, they have the exact opposite problems. The incentives are driving things one way or the other. So it's like, I don't really necessarily think throwing the government in the mix is going to help. If anything, I think reducing it would be the best, personally. But I mean, I don't know. It is usually people do get a brand name, that's what they stick with. But definitely don't let them get infiltrated with feds like Twitter did. I
don't know that you can prevent social media companies from becoming infiltrated with with federal
there's
agents.
A way, Phil.
The reason I say is because it's too much of a honeypot. I mean, the capabilities that your average phone has, like to monitor the average person, the idea that the federal government isn't going to attempt to get their fingers into software that makes that possible. I don't know that you get a world without governments trying to do that, and I don't know how you stop them either.
Well, you free software. If your code's on GitHub or GitLab or something where people can watch and see if it's tracking you, at least if it's the software itself is tracking you. The networks are, I don't know, you'll never be able to keep people out of the networks. You'll have feds undercover in the networks, but you don't want you don't want companies running social media. The companies can get hijacked, so you want decentralized software packets that do it on.
If they drop the patents, it'd be like that's another thing where the government gets involved with the patent system. I'm sure. I mean, I'm not a tech guy. I'm kind of a tech idiot. But if they dial back some of the regulation they have there, it makes so much easier for a starting point for people for like alternative like social medias and stuff.
Dial back what exactly?
Patents, because I know your big thing is about like releasing information in the world. Like, I mean, I don't know exactly how it works in tech. I'm a tech idiot, but I'm assuming a lot of these things are protected between like IP type stuff.
Yes.
So, and I know that's a common point you touch on a lot.
Yeah, I brought that up last night to Jim Jordan, that one way, instead of breaking up a company monopoly like Twitter or Alphabet by smashing it into 7 different companies and then giving the CEO of Alphabet access to all the code from all 7 companies, which would be counterintuitive, you would actually force them to free their software code or aspects of their software code that would let other people compete.
I would be completely miserable if that happened to Apple. And the reason is I want Apple to have tight control over their products because I am willing to pay extra for the synergy that comes when you use Apple products. When I open up my EarPods for the first time, they automatically find the phone, etc. Like Apple products are made to work together. As soon as you open up the code and you essentially are just turning Apple products into other hardware where the software is open and people can do whatever they want to create software, then you end up with the same issue that you get with PCs now, which is you don't know how reliable the company that produced whatever piece of software you have is, or whatever piece of software you want to use. You don't know how reliable they are. You don't know how the quality control is. You don't know what that piece of software is going to do to other software in your computer. I stick with Apple stuff because I know that Apple controls it, and Apple controls it tightly. And I know that this is probably an unpopular opinion for a lot of people, but I don't.
They're saying you're rolling a 1.
Yeah,
it's because when they control.
I don't want people getting into Apple and saying, "Well, you have to do this," and making Apple stuff work, taking away the synergy that Apple's products have. I like the way Apple products work, and I don't want some government person getting involved and saying Apple's too big, has too much control, so we want to stick our nose in and say that you have to do this and have to do that.
There's 2 aspects of like when you're building software is compatibility, like ease of use, and then security is one of them. Apple is very low security. We don't know what their security systems are doing, if they're tracking you, if they're selling your DNA.
They told the FBI to pound sand when they were trying to get that the dude they were accused of terrorist. They wanted to unlock his phone, and Apple's like, "Yo, we're not doing it because you'd have to make a back end into the thing." So, granted, you can't predict the future, but I was happy with that result that they told the FBI to go F off, so.
No, Apple's a big no for me, dog. I'm not.
I get it.
We had, we got one Apple machine here out of all the machines because we had someone who was like, well, I know how to use Apple, and it's just been a disaster.
I was
like, the integration is the opposite of what you're describing.
Yes, for Apple with using other IBM stuff, but if you're using...
No, like you can't even, like hard drives, for instance. It's like we want to transfer data between hard drives. You could take a hard drive between any PC, but not between Apple.
Yeah.
But like Apple is one company versus the 8 million other companies.
That's part of why I don't want them to mess with Apple, because there's all these other options.
Yeah, but then the hard drive would work between other computers. So instead, it's like we plug the hard drive in, it's like there's no data on it. And we're like, well, it can work in literally any of the various PCs from different brands, different companies, different laptops, but not the Apple.
Yeah.
That one we have weird problems with.
They're finally adopting USB-C, I think. They kept building their own plugs and like
They have
forcing you
to.
buy.
I think Europe passed a law saying they have to use a standard, so it's going to be USB-C.
I was deep on free software last night, thinking about like, so I started to think about the arms manufacturers. I'm like, okay, liberal economic order is basically Lockheed Martin, Boeing. There's 5 of them: Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, and General Dynamics. But then there's the British one, BAE Systems. So the 6 of them together comprise about $140 billion of arms dealers. 5 of the 6 largest arms dealers on earth are in America. Yeah. They are supplying us directly with our own weapons. And I was like, would I force them to free their software code? Arguably, hell no. Because, and how would I do that? Because then you're giving your weapons systems to the potential enemy. I don't like thinking in terms of friend and enemy, but they do. The weapons manufacturers sure are. I'm like, can't we just blow up bombs on Mars to heat it up?
We don't make
No,
chips.
these are actual tactical games they're playing with weapons. They want to fight. That's what this is system. They seem to want to. So, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead,
Phil.
keep going.
So I think there are times that you don't want to open source the code, but when it comes to social media and information, I am bullish. What were you saying?
No, I think that nowadays the chips and most of your microchips and stuff are not made in the U.S. and there's a strong likelihood that they're all compromised anyways, because they're made in China or Taiwan or whatever.
We're gonna dive headfirst into the shallow end with this next story about Eliza Blue, Chrissy Mayer, and all the stuff that's been going on over the past week. And we'll be as candid as possible. I'm sure we'll piss some people off. But we have this tweet from Chrissy Mayer. For those that aren't familiar, Chrissy Mayer is a comedian and she hosts a podcast called Timcast. And she's been on the show, I think a couple times, right? It's been a couple times. We've had her on the show before. And so there's been some controversy related to a guest we had recently, Eliza Blue, and some censorship actions that she's been accused of, notably filing privacy requests against people who talk about her past work. And so here we have the story from Chrissy Mayer. She says, Eliza Blue got 4 of my YouTube videos removed for showing a fair and balanced doc trailer, which featured 3 to 5 seconds of her public, at the time now removed, world star hip hop video. Must be nice to have the power to rewrite history, then gaslight Twitter and YouTube into accepting it. Now, I'll say this outright. I said previously I'm uninterested in this. And I'll kind of, I think this got to the point where literally right before the show, I saw this tweet and I'm like, okay, guys, you got me. All right. Like, I'm starting to see and learn more. That's having me question what's going on if YouTube videos are getting pulled. And we're hearing that a bunch of people actually had YouTube videos getting pulled. And so this clearly is an abuse of the system to a degree that we've not seen for a while now. It used to be in the early days of YouTube, there were attempts by political rivals to falsely flag and get people's content removed. And now it seems like we're seeing an uptick in this, particularly pertaining to Eliza Blue. The first thing I'll say is, as it pertains to the issues related to me personally, look, man, I say it a million times. I'm an arrogant shithead, and so don't come at me and yell at and scream in my face and think I'm going to bend the knee and do anything for you. And I will tell everybody right off the bat, we had this person on the show that I don't care too much about. I don't follow her career. I don't know much about her, and I don't handle booking. We've had her on the show 2 times, but all of a sudden we found ourselves inundated with. And I'm not saying, you guys got to be very careful, because when I said that there was a PR firm running like 50 accounts, everyone started claiming I called literally the millions of people who are watching these videos bots. I never said that. Yep. But we got some very gruesome, gruesome is maybe not the right word, but let's just say, people crossed the line with what they were sending to us and the images they were posting of people. Easiest way to get me to be like, I will not give you what you want. But here's what I have to say about this. There are a lot of people who are genuinely concerned about what we're seeing in terms of what Eliza Blue's done and her past work. And there's a big difference between those people and the very few people I am directly criticizing. The people who are posting just really awful photos and videos, sending awful things to us. And I want to make sure that people understand, because there's still this here's what I said earlier. Following the Project Veritas stuff, following, obviously the Crowder Daily Wire stuff, following these Republicans getting shot, I'm reading this. I have a source contacting me. They say, we want you to read this letter, check this out. And I'm like, okay, well, we're going to publish this. And I'm reading this and I'm like, yo, if all of this bad stuff is happening right now to various organizations and everyone's fighting with each other, that's it. Like, infiltrate, destroy, right? You make divide and conquer. Yeah, I'm not going to be all about that, right? So I said outright to Jeremy Hambley of the Quartering, look, I apologize. I don't want to be fighting with you. We agree on way too much for me to be bickering or complaining about something that is like one issue where, ultimately probably agree mostly on it, but there's like a personal issue that's making, me upset or something like that. When I'm looking at, we have another story we'll talk about in a minute, a woman saying that she used to work in gender affirmation for children, and now she's realizing how bad it is. I'm like, there's a lot more things that we all agree on that we need to be focused on. Mm-hmm. My biggest concern with all of this is, obviously censorship is bad, but if I'm going to get distracted and personally aggrieved or whatever, and that means infighting will erupt that takes us off mission, we're being played. We're being played. And so I'll say this to you right now. When I came out with my video earlier and said exactly that, like, Jeremy, I shouldn't be fighting with you. I shouldn't be, that's not what we should be doing. That's not what I should be doing. So I apologize. Jeremy put out a video saying he apologizes. I have tremendous respect for that, and I sincerely apologize. There are still people trying to drum up this infighting, and that is exactly what I'm talking about. When all this starts, and I'm this guy who's sitting here like, look, man, I don't know anything about her. We booked her on the show because she's on Twitter and she's a prominent activist. I didn't know that people had beef with her, and I don't know what that beef is. We get people sending us, let me just say, like, photos and videos that I just think would make a dad, like if a dad found out people are doing about his daughter, he'd end up in jail, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So you want to come at me and my friends with these really horrifying things, and I'm going to be like outright not getting anywhere near this. But I genuinely and legitimately understand that's not most people. So I hope all of you understand that there are people still right now trying to get us to keep fighting. I'm not going to do it. I will outright say, especially upon seeing Chrissy Mayer get her videos taken down, I'm absolutely wrong about that. I was personally slighted, and that put blinders on me. I don't want to fight with anybody. I will keep being an arrogant shithead, and I will say that. But I also recognize we shouldn't be fighting if we can avoid it, and we can focus on things that are more important. So the only thing I can say, just one last thought, is please keep an eye out for those who are still in the chat right now desperately trying to get me to get angry and to fight with you guys when I'm saying, no, wait, man, like, we need to come together on this.
Yeah, I think the big thing here is people, like they say in soccer, if you're a defender, keep your eye on the ball. And I think so many people got their eye off the ball in this story. And I'm, like you pointed out, with the censorship, I don't know if you pointed out the legal action she threatened supposedly online. I think those are things that are worthy of derision and worthy of looking into and see what is going on here. Why is this happening? Maybe there's more to the story. But this thing got taken so out of control and to such a level to things that had nothing to do with it. Her past, which don't get me wrong, like, sure that like maybe like discredited her or something, but that, I don't, personally myself, I couldn't care if she made up all of that. That's not pertinent information to me. What is pertinent to me is, did she threaten legal action against people, and is she getting accounts taken down? I don't know. I'm open to it. It seems that way. It seems to imply. I read Shane's latest article. It seems there's something building there, maybe some sort of argument. I don't know. I'm still open to. And the people criticizing Timcast for not jumping in already, they literally had a guy there. And like, it was clearly not a fleshed out story. So why would you comment on something before it's a fleshed out story?
But here's what I think too, and I can't speak for Shane, right? I will tell you guys with 100% sincere honesty. I told Shane I didn't think the story was worth it. I don't know anything about it, and I said to him, if you do this, you need to sit down with Jeremy Hambley, and we need to do like 2 different profiles of like, what is the big picture here? Here's the problem, and we got baited because the things that were sent to Shane, I guarantee you, like, and again, I can't speak for him. It's not like he said this to me, but I do know that people posted very inappropriate things about his family. You do that, you guarantee that's bait. They were trying to get us to fight. And so I've now had people saying like, bro, it's an op. Like, they're trying to make you fight each other. What I was saying is it's a PR firm that I think was trying to promote Eliza because it worked in making her famous. Having John Rich come on here and be like, who is this Eliza I'm hearing about now? And I'm like, man, that's so convenient for her. And I'm specifically referring to, obviously not like a YouTube channel where they're talking about it. I'm referring to the people even still right now in the chat who are desperately trying to make us fight. Mm-hmm. And they're the same accounts that spam the same things over and over and over again, clearly inorganic, desperately trying to make conflict happen.
Sometimes even real people get caught in that state of mind because it's like scratching an itch. It feels so good, but if you keep scratching, you're going to rip the skin off and make it bleed. Like, we're in the it feels really good state right now. Don't keep scratching. Brittany Venti got videos taken down of her today. I made a YouTube video for the first time in about a month and a half today about this on my YouTube channel, Ian Crossland. Please check it out after the show. And I'll remind you again. And I posted a link to Brittany's video. In that video, she showed clips from this World Star music video in question. This is all revolving around this one video, I think, that had been previously taken down. But Brittany still had clips from this now removed video on her channel. Then that video was removed over the course of the last 6 hours. Eliza, I'm concerned that shame is a very powerful, dangerous feeling. And if you are pushed into becoming a useful tool for cancel culture, to hyperinflate cancel culture because of your I know it's generic, afraid of your past, but just it's don't become the villain that you're looking to squash out. That's the best advice I think I can give you right now. But if these bans are unjust, they need to be rectified. If something Brittany said in her video, she was showing screenshots of Twitter's ban thing, and they said that it was privately created or distributed sensitive content.
That's a Twitter rule.
It was publicly distributed sensitive content. It was not private, and it was taken down for it being a privately sensitive piece of content.
How sensitive is it really? If
it was the music video.
Yeah, she made the video. She was proud of it. She was, ostensibly she was spreading it around back in the day. So
I think that's up for debate. But I think it for the sake of argument, we say it is sensitive content, but it was public sensitive content. So Twitter, reinstate Brittany. That ban is unjust, in my opinion.
Simply put, and just to go back to like our position on this, I think I got tricked. I think we all got tricked here into taking out our anger on people like Jeremy and Brittany. I think so. It's like I don't want to get into too much detail about what was happening to us, but like, these are my friends and people I care about, and I don't want to call them threats or anything. But the stuff we were getting sent was, let's just put it triggering. If someone sent you the stuff that we got sent, you'd probably react the same way. And then when, I was looking at, I made this joke tweet earlier. I was like, Daily Wire, Project Veritas, me in the quartering. You thought it was a coincidence? Wait till phase 2 or whatever, like as a joke. Mm-hmm. People thought it was real. And then I stopped and kind of thought about it when I was reading the Veritas letter. And I'm like, people were saying, is it a coincidence that right after the Pfizer thing comes out, we have the Grammys brought to you by Pfizer. We do this big thing complaining about it. All of a sudden, we're getting slammed with these people claiming to represent a group of people, but they're sending us some of the most abhorrent and awful things you could imagine, pissing us off and making us fight. And then I'm just like, I'm not doing it. You got me. You got me for a few days, but I'm not going to do it now.
And to some of the nicest people I've ever met. The two people in question, I've interacted with them, met one of them personally, and like even with the limited time I met them, they genuinely are some of the nicest people I ever met.
Who are you talking about?
The one person, because I'm sure we don't want to name the name to deflate it. No.
Oh, I don't care.
Then Shane Cashman. So Shane, I've only met him online. Done one show with him. He came on my show, Four Pony Boys, which is a joking ripoff of Four Horsemen, because we're buddies, and so who cares? But yeah, I've had him on my show. He's like the nicest guy I ever met, and super interesting fella. And just for this to happen to someone like that, not that it makes it better who they are, but it's just disgusting.
This is the thing too. It's like even before we did anything, we were getting sent awful stuff and getting attacked. Mm-hmm. And then so I was like, okay, well, we're going to cover this. And then it ramped up and got crazier. Yeah. And then, of course, I'm like I had an internal conversation with Shane, and I'm saying, like, I don't know if we can handle whatever this is or what they're doing. And he's like, oh, we got to tell the story, man.
You know what's something I realized?
I recommended, Shane's clearly pissed. I don't know. I think we had talked to him. The plan now is maybe as soon as possible is to have Chrissy Mayer on with Shane and then just hash all this stuff out, because I think we're being played.
I'd love to have Brittany Venti and Eliza on at some point in the future after we work through these cycles. I think it's fantastic. This is this kind of thing we can avoid in the future if we talk about it now. I realized we have a responsibility to talk about this stuff. It's not stuff I want to do. I don't want to get dramatic and talk about my friends online, who did what and who said what. But when it comes to banning and people losing their livelihoods, like if someone's banned from Twitter, that could be their life, their income. And it's this show, Tim, me, we have a responsibility to talk about cancel culture and social media censorship. It's just like, with great power comes great responsibility, and you have to make personal sacrifices. This is a sacrifice we have to make. We have to talk about this stuff.
I think that it's pretty clear that I don't imagine that people thought that the Timcast brand was pro-censorship because of this stuff. But I mean, there's a lot of people in the chat that are, like you said, that are still looking to stir it up, that are a lot of
lies too.
So
Like that was the thing about it is I'm seeing people post videos being like, I'm canceling my membership at timcast.com and stuff like that. And we gained over 1,000 members in the past week, which is 3 times like what we normally do.
I think everybody involved in this has become more famous as a result of this whole thing. So
I think
you could call it infighting. Steven Crowder's way more popular than he was 2 months ago. Daily Wire, a lot more people heard of Daily Wire. When I saw that meme of you with Jack Murphy's beard on your face, I was like, people that you've never heard of now that don't even aren't in politics are hearing about you now.
Yeah, but it's not a good thing when we're arguing with each other about this instead of talking about this next story, which you need to see. No,
it can be a good thing if we make it right.
No, I don't like infighting. I don't like that as a means to generate notoriety. Like if you want drama, let's have drama with this. Take a look at this story from the Free Press. I thought I was saving trans kids. Now I'm blowing the whistle. There are more than 100 pediatric gender clinics across the U.S. I worked at one. What's happening to children is morally and medically appalling. I mean, that's the gist of her story. It's a woman who worked for 4 years at a clinic as a case manager, responsible for patient intake and oversight. I left the clinic in November last year because I could no longer participate in what was happening there. By the time I departed, I was certain that the way the American medical system is treating these patients is the opposite of the promise to do no harm. Instead, we are permanently harming the vulnerable patients in our care. I'm segueing here, but I want to mention, this is the kind of story that makes me be like, guys, you know what, man, I will eat humble pie. I will do whatever. I need your help on this one. I don't want to fight with people about drama stuff. We shouldn't do that. I shouldn't do that. I'll say whatever I have to say to calm everybody out, to chill everybody out. And that's on me. I'll take that. Because this is the kind of stuff that makes me feel like, look, I've been talking on this channel for a long time about just getting the van down by the river and just letting it all go away. And the problem with that is every time I imagine how much more fun, in a sense, my life would be if I just said, I'm done working 16-hour days, I'm done running a company, I'm going to go hang out by the river and just catch some fish and just breathe the fresh air. And then I think about 5 years after that, people will be locked up in camps, kids will be getting castrated, money will be worthless. And I'm like, yeah, if we stop doing what we're doing, or if we turn on each other, this is the kind of stuff that doesn't get exposed. I believe this woman who's coming out here is coming out now and saying, hey, what they're doing to kids is wrong, is likely doing it not completely because of the work that we do or people like the Quartering or whatever, but partially as a grain of sand making that heap. The more we promote individuals calling this out, the more people will wake up to what the cult is.
Yeah.
And if we do nothing, and if we fight with each other, and I'll take responsibility on that. If I keep doing that, if I keep getting pissed off and telling people to go screw themselves, I'm going to wake up one day in a world where this is the norm, 100%.
Yeah. I just spent the past week in LA working with, doing ATR stuff. And I know a lot of the very left-leaning people and spending time in Los Angeles and Hollywood and stuff. Those are the kind of people that you run into. And even people that you would consider left-leaning, they have kids and they hear about this kind of stuff and they're just like, yo, no, this is where I draw the line. And they don't want to talk about it in public. They don't want to admit it because it's, it's a dangerous thing to condemn this kind of stuff because there's all kinds of associations that people on the left make if you condemn these kind of gender surgeries, gender reassignment surgeries. But parents are over it. Parents don't want. It doesn't matter if they're left or right. Parents are strongly of the opinion that this stuff is bad, and without people like this show, like the people that we have on here, pushing back on this stuff, people don't come out and say, hey, this stuff is bad. They don't have the intestinal fortitude or whatever to stand up and say, hey, no, I really have this problem with these procedures and stuff. So it is important work.
Matt Walsh went down to Loudoun County and he spoke about critical race theory and gender ideology in these schools. Mm-hmm. It is this kind of work where, look, man, I don't agree with Matt Walsh on a lot of things. All right, he's a bold guy, to put it mildly, but I think, in a future where there's factions of Matt Walsh's, the disagreements we have is sitting at a table and him being like, look, Tim, I just don't agree with you on how we're going to be implementing a policy like that. And then me saying things like, well, look, I don't know, but, I'll see at the ballot box. Whereas today, it's people bringing kids in for castration. You know what I mean?
I wonder about you guys, Jose and Reed, like, I think of you guys as the pinnacle of libertarianism, and I wonder how
no.
do you deal with this kind of
Clip
stuff?
that.
Disavow.
When you live hands
I
off,
disavow that.
I don't know if you would call libertarian hands off, but when you live like you live your life, I'll live mine. What do you do when a parent across the road wants to cut their kid's genitals off and turn them into another gender?
Yeah, so I'm all about cultural repulsion. Basically,
Yep.
I think that's
Bullying.
the strongest way to go. Like in New Hampshire, we're really trying to create a culture of obnoxious liberty, as Phil can attest to. Not just the Twitter account, but just in general.
The
only
anarchist, abominable snowmen up in New Hampshire.
The only
But
reason this has taken off is because the cultural sensibility is allowing it to go on and handling these people with kid gloves. If
Yeah.
we push back and said, "Oh, yeah, it's ridiculous that you want to, mess with the endocrine system of a young child at a point where their endocrine system's already in flux and mutilate their genitals, and in a point where they're not really in any sort of stage to give any sort of meaningful consent in their life," I don't think it's that crazy. But like, hey, yeah, you're nuts. Like to be essentially a bully, to push back culturally the opposite way. I mean, I'm not saying do violence to these people or anything like that, but there's no reason you need to accept that as a narrative, as that's okay.
There are people constantly saying that they're so glad that they left New Hampshire because of a bunch of libertarian idiots or whatever, and we're all like, good, we're glad you left. And they have protests where they're calling free staters vermin, invasive species that need to be exterminated. That's what they're saying about us.
Is it because you guys troll people?
Yeah, because we're so obnoxious and
By the
we're
way, to
openly
be clear,
happy
I'm not
about it.
saying to do that to adults who have made this choice on their own. I mean, I have my
Yeah,
personal
same.
opinions. It's probably a little bit ridiculous if you start like, but like snip, snip. But so far, it's your life at that point. Do what you want. I don't care.
Dave
You know?
Smith made a great point when he said that stigma is how you peacefully discourage behavior that you don't like.
Yep.
And so the idea that libertarianism equals libertine
Yes.
government.
We bully them a lot.
yeah.
The libertines.
What's that?
Well, so just because something is legal doesn't mean that you have to endorse it. And that's one of the things that people that have it, you call them state or we call them status or whatever, but like that's what a status tends to think. If you say, I don't think this should be illegal, they automatically in their brain jump to the conclusion that you endorse the behavior. And so I don't think that it should be illegal for people to get to get gender reassignment surgery. That's fine. You live your life, go ahead. That's totally fine. But there's nothing wrong with stigmatizing people that want to have children or young adults get gender reassignment surgery and condemning the idea of teenagers and or children getting gender reassignment surgery. That's something that society should do.
There are challenges to any kind of like the idea of cosmetic surgery is a gradient. It's not yes or no. It's not black or white. So if we could ask a few questions to explore the morality of transgender surgeries and plastic surgery in general. Is it okay for an 18-year-old human being to have their hand surgically removed?
18, I say. I mean, because of the fact that you have to have an arbitrary line, I guess 18. But I mean, you're not fully developed at 18.
Yes.
But
Well, I mean, a legal adult.
yeah,
You think it's okay? Would you guys?
I mean, I don't want
Is this
to.
an age of consent conversation?
No, he did not say those three words.
It should be legal, but it should be condemned. Like people shouldn't support the idea. People shouldn't encourage it, and doctors shouldn't say, "Let's go ahead and cut your hand off." Like it should. I don't think that we should have.
What do you guys think?
I agree.
Should it be illegal
no,
for
I agree with
adults
them.
to have their hand surgically removed?
I
Sure.
think the ethical thing for a doctor is to not do it and I think stigma comes in play if they do it. They get shunned upon by the doctor's community, other people in the community, et cetera, et cetera.
This is where the Ron Paul argument about heroin comes in. He told a bunch of Republicans in, 2012, in South Carolina, like, if heroin was legal today, how many of you would go shoot up right now? And the whole crowd was like, yeah, none of us would. So, I mean, no one's going to, like, cut off their hand, I mean...
They will. Yeah, it's called
Okay,
body.
some might.
A general body dysmorphic disorder, or something to that effect, where people they feel like I talked about this with the Twitter 1.0 executives when they were talking about how they got to protect trans people because they're having an identity crisis that results in depression and potentially suicide. I said the same is true for general body dysmorphia. Anorexic, for instance, people are starving themselves to death, or people who overeat and become morbidly obese and have heart attacks, but also people who want to have their limbs removed, and they do. There are many stories of there's one guy who had like a tree fall on his arm so that he could justify amputation because he wanted it removed from his body.
So he cut it down on top of his arm?
Something like that happened. Yeah, he had it fall on his arm so that he could justify removing it, or something to that effect. Or I think he smashed it with a hammer and then claimed something like that happened and he needed to get it removed. There are people who are experiencing this, and there are questions about what is the best way to provide assistance to them. If there is no and this is where I suppose I'm more liberal and less libertarian. If the law exists, you could shun a guy all day and night, but if he's getting paid the money for it, you don't care what you think.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I've been a blue collar worker for the last 10 years of my life, and every time some anomaly takes place, OSHA thinks they have to regulate it away from ever happening again, instead of accepting people are stupid and they're going to make mistakes and dumb stuff is going to happen, and having a very, reasonable set of guidelines. They make it so now you have to wear a harness when you're 4 feet in the air.
I also want to touch.
So I'm just saying that, like,
I get it.
Justifying a law because of red herrings just leads you to a place of stupidity.
But I don't
basically.
I don't think it's a red herring, because those are things that actually happen. Like, they're actually, the question about removing the hand is a question of, can you pay a doctor to remove a healthy body part? And the answer right now is, for the most part, yes. Mm-hmm. That's not how you actually help a person who's suffering from some body dysmorphia. So what happens is, hey man, if the money's good, but if someone is, I'll put it this way, because it doesn't include death. What we often talk about is the Golden Gate Bridge, and every person who's jumped off it and survived has explained that they immediately regretted it, and the one thing going through their mind was, all of life's problems could be solved except for having jumped off the bridge. And so if they jump off and they end up regretting it and they live, we learn that. If someone says, I need my hand removed, and then they regret it, what do? Right. You're never getting it back. And you had that one doctor who said, that woman who said, of children who get mastectomies, if they ever want breasts when they're older, they can just get implants. It's like, that's not the same thing. You've lost them.
This is where stigma comes in. Good example. I have a business. I breed hairless cats. I know it sounds silly, but we deal with clients. We sell them, and this is where stigma comes in. Yes, you could have the concept of, hey, the money's good. That's it. But we even have turned down business many times because we're like, I don't like this client. I don't like the idea that this person is going to have my pet, and they're going to be a representation of my brand. And vice versa. Like, we also have to upkeep a certain standard, have a clean cat room, a nice presenting house, because we want to have a good looking brand, because we don't want to be looked at as like crap. So, like, the idea that, and I'm not trying to, like, crap on you or anything, but I'm just saying, like, the idea that's just like, oh, as long as the money's good, there's a whole lot more that goes into that. And yes, on an individual level, there still will be, like, there's definitely people that go and sell hairless cats for like $500, which is like criminally low for them, and it's just gross. Like, and those are going to exist. But in the long run, that is not a good way to upkeep what you're doing, because it doesn't work. Like, but there will be individual situations. I just what system works best.
Obviously, in a system where it's culturally homogenous, you're right, we don't need government. But that's not what we have, and that's not what's happening around the world. And I think it's an idealistic answer to be like, well, someone shouldn't cut off a person's hand, but they'll be shunned for it. They'll go set up a practice in the middle of nowhere, and they'll do it.
Yeah, I think shunning works on local levels when you know people, like you have a small business, technically. But when you have like large multinational corporations that are for profit, medicating people for life, we cut your hand off, but then you get to take our drugs, our blood thinners for the rest of your life.
You just touched it right there, local. Right there, local. That's it. I think the key is local. And start focusing local, because the thing is too, like, this kind of plays in economics as well. If you have a place that has a bad economic place and you're able to be like segmented off in this other area, over time they're going to end up being a worse area to be, and people are going to more likely want to come to your area that's a better system, that's more, and yeah, I mean, sure, maybe there are people over here like awful things and they somehow are successful doing awful things, but at the end of the day, that's not your concern, because you're in your local area and doing what you do and drawing people that like what you do to continue that.
I agree that is key, but I dealing with multinational corporations that are still going to be there when we go local. I mean, I'm open to abolishing multinational corporations. I don't know who has the authority to do that at this point. I don't think anyone. That, like, they are or whoever these companies are that are administering the drugs, not only the surgeries but the drugs to people for profit, are making massive amounts of money. If we don't make it illegal, why would they? Shame doesn't stop multinational corporations from making in trillions or billions.
The problem that this is a symptom of a larger problem. So focusing on, like, what do we do about the idea that transgender youth, transgender teenagers are getting bottom surgery or whatever. What you really need to do is find out if they're actually transgender or not.
Most of the time they end up being gay.
Pardon me?
Most of the time they end up being gay.
Well, I mean, I can't.
That's what the stats bear.
Well, I mean, essentially that's the long and short of it. But the fact that we've got society trying to or elements of society trying to encourage kids to transition, to encourage young people to transition. There is the monetary aspect of it with the pharmaceutical companies and with hospitals that want to do these surgeries because they're expensive and because you're getting a customer for life. But it's also the ideology that's being, that people are being taught in schools, and it comes from the culture with the whole. I think that the focus on LGBT identities or LGBTQ identities as novel and something to be held up in high regard and esteem as better than normal or whatever. That's a problem with it too. You get a kid that's maybe gay or maybe bi, or a girl that's a tomboy, and then people start whispering in their ear, "Oh, you're transgender," and if they change their sex or whatever, if they transition, that's the word I was looking for. If they transition, they get a bunch of attention and stuff. There are all these incentives for people to do this, and the incentives are the things that we need to get rid of, so you can find the people that actually are intersex, that are actually trans.
But that's a cultural issue.
Yes.
And it comes down to, if we as a culture were homogenous in our morality, we wouldn't need any laws at all. Nobody's going to steal from anybody else because we all completely agree.
Until somebody runs out of food.
See, the issue is, in very small, culturally homogenous systems, they work together. Running out of food isn't as big of a deal. Insurance originated as, if my house burns down, help me rebuild it, because if yours burns down, I'll help you rebuild it.
Yeah.
Then we codified it with money, and we all pay into the system. That ultimately leads to, as the population grows and grows and grows, a segmented, fractured society where we don't talk to our own neighbors. And thus we have a fractured culture. So now the police are enforcing the laws because we don't completely agree. And some people say, I don't know you, I don't care about you, and I need something, so I'll take it from you. They don't share the values. I mean, you look at Chicago, you got people who use guns to commit crimes all the time despite it being illegal. They don't care. But then you got law-abiding citizens who agree not to break the law, and they won't take guns. So this isn't working. If everyone was on the same page and said we should all have guns, then there would be no illegal guns, there would be no gun laws, there would be no police enforcing gun laws, and everybody would have guns. If every single person agreed there should be no guns, including the criminals, then nobody would have guns, there'd be no people getting arrested for guns. But right now, people disagree, and some people don't care. So I don't know if we can ever get to that idealistic position of we're culturally homogenous anymore.
I don't know. I don't think so. Not literally, but I'm sponsored by Pfizer. If you see, I see the Grammys was sponsored by Pfizer. Like, that's very concerning if you're talking about putting information and ideas into kids' brains about who's making the money off these surgeries, off these child gender surgeries. It's like pharmaceutical companies and hospitals and stuff are making money off this for profit. So unless we make it illegal, I mean, are there points in libertarianism or just in general where you guys are like,
we're going to go to super chats.
Think about this tonight. Are there points, even with a libertarian mind, that you would use the government to make things illegal?
Let's go.
They won't admit it publicly.
We are going to go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, become a member at timcast.com if you want to support our work and our cultural endeavors. The coffee shop is underway. The new studio is underway. We got a new show planned for the morning. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I appreciate all of your continued support. And let's read what you guys got to say. Goldilocks says, hey, Tim, Jeremy put out an apology video. How this drama between you and the quartering can be put behind us and we can move on as brothers in arms against the establishment. I completely agree. And I say thank you to Jeremy. I appreciate it. I apologize sincerely because I started to think about this with the Veritas thing. If Jeremy and I agree on 99.999% of things, and then I'm just personally aggrieved because, whatever, like I got triggered, then I'm kind of like, why am I fighting with the guy I agree with? This is bad for me. This is bad for what I want. If I want to eventually get to the point where I can go live in a van down by the river, I'm going to need other people who are going to be people who will be carrying on that fight to make sure things don't fall apart. So I kind of felt like, look, I can be aggressive and arrogant and tell people to go screw off. This apology is more about me accepting the bigger picture and how, in the end, if I think I'm going to get anything I want or achieve anything, I can't do it by myself. And fighting with other people who agree with me is the worst possible thing for me. Quite literally a stupid position to hold. So I accept that. And I have to do what I'll do what I can. Y'all can y'all want to be mad at me, keep being mad at me, by all means. There are still people in the chat who are trying to sow conflict or whatever. But I'll put it this way. You can think I'm wrong. You can think I'm lying. You can think all those things. But it is 100% factually true that if we agree with each other on core issues, then we have to fight in the same direction. We can hate each other afterwards, after we stop, kids getting mutilated or whatever. All right. Rusty Shackelford says, Tim, please make that Eliza Blue song with John Rich. That was priceless. That was really good. John Rich just ad-libbed that song. It was interesting.
That was good.
Rocket Sauce says, I don't always watch Timcast IRL by the pool while smoking venison at my apartment complex, but when I do, the neighbors do too. Cheers. That sounds really good, man. Nick Stevenson says, Tim, $10 says this is a targeted attack on Project Veritas by infiltrators. Love your work, Nick. I kind of feel the same way. And that's what made me think look, I'm on Twitter and I'm going off. I'm like, screw everybody. I don't care. I don't need to do this. I don't, I get so much flack. And then I started thinking about the possibility that I'm being manipulated or I'm being played, that the people who are trying to get me mad at Jeremy are doing just that because they're trying to get us to attack each other. And then I'm like, I'm not mad at Jeremy. This is stupid. I deeply care about like watching AOC go on stage or in Congress and lie about stuff. I deeply care about policy that's causing our economy to get worse. And I deeply care about, am I going to have a future opportunity, or is this country going to fall into a garbage dump? So I'm not going to, why am I wasting my time arguing with people who agree with me? Like, that's stupid. I'll say it a million times. We'll just keep reading more super chats.
Special shout out to Scroats Magoats, by the way.
That was fake.
Not a real guy? Scroats.
No. Scroats Magoats said someone was impersonating him and sent us an email.
Oh, wicked.
That's the thing.
Yeah, trust no one. Horrible to say, but
this is another thing that got me going. We got an email from our actual member saying, hey man, I did not say those things. And we checked, membership active, everything's good. And then he was like, I'm going to actually increase my membership because I want you guys to know I support you. And then I was like, dude, someone's screwing with us.
So to all you scroats out there, impersonators or no, hope you have a nice evening.
All you scroats.
Yep. All right. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, I should have told you earlier that Project Veritas stuff got me thinking. Your current drama is orchestrated by the Crystal King himself. Ian wants you out. I saw him and Roberto Jr. having a contract meeting.
Oh, did you? Keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
It's right here. Yeah, check it out. Cast Castle on timcast.com. Hot. You can also subscribe to the channel on YouTube if you want to see clips from older shows as they come out later. But if you want to get the newest episode, you're going to want to go to timcast.com.
Justin Bell says, Tim, just wanted to say thank you for starting this process of healing the divide. We all mess up, and after last week, that was good. I will disagree and say, I actually think I was being aggressive in the beginning to begin with, and I don't like the stuff that we were getting sent that made me really angry wasn't coming from Jeremy. So for me to then take it on him, that was my fault in the first place. So I don't think I should get credit for healing a divide. I can get, I don't know, you can say good job on chilling the F out, I suppose. Look, I sincerely mean it. I don't want to fight with people who I agree with. That's stupid. All right, let's see. Where we go? Matthew Velasquez says, Tim, if Elon Musk can buy Twitter, then you can hire James O'Keefe. This is your Elon moment, dude. I got to be honest. Like, when we heard that James O'Keefe got ousted, I was like, can we get him on the phone here? We don't have the legal wherewithal to handle a project level operation. When we get people coming to us about stuff, I always just direct them to Veritas. I just say, guys, like, they're the ones who have the legal apparatus to deal with this stuff, not us. However, that being said, if James is looking to start a new organization,
if you build it, they will come.
A nonprofit that can, I'm willing to bet that all the donors will follow James O'Keefe, the ideological leader and founder of the organization.
Yeah. But I will say, James, and he's even explicit, it's not about him. It's about the movement itself. And if Project Veritas continues on without James, and then James starts a new organization, and now there's 2 places that whistleblowers can go to, all the better.
Seth Weather says, I hope James ate the sandwich. Like, that's the thing, too. It's like, that's why they're firing the guy, because they watched him take a sandwich from somebody. Even if that was true, I'd be like, what? Like, if Ian walked up to another employee and grabbed their sandwich, I'd just be like, don't do that, I guess. Like, people would be like, yo, Ian took my sandwich. We'd be like, all right, well, we'll tell him not to do that.
Yeah, it's kind of self-correcting, I think.
Could you imagine if we called you in for like a 6-hour meeting where we're like, you took a sandwich, and we're like slamming.
What was on the sandwich?
Go make another sandwich, Ian. Go make it.
Or you ate the sandwich.
All right. Marion Holtzman says, the serious cases that James O'Keefe covers, I would think he needs to run a very tight organization. For those dropping the ball, fire them. Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree.
But I think because it's a nonprofit, there's 3 directors on the board. So James never had full control of that thing. It was always him and at least 2 other people.
Jeremy Hernan says, glad to see you and Jeremy bury the hatchet. Love you both. You should really try again to bring him on. He says he doesn't like flying, so it is what it is. But yeah, man, look, I've had people on this show who I genuinely think are bad people. And it's like, of all the people I should be mad at, I don't know, I just felt in the end, I'm kind of like, it's definitely not him.
Yeah.
It's like we've had people on the show who are legitimate grifters who pretend like they, or literally don't know what's going on in the world. And without calling anybody out, it's typically like, left-leaning people.
Man, I wanted to get in there and start calling names out, but
Yeah,
I'll keep my face
Well,
shut.
it's like, look, there are some good left-wing people we've had on the show who are genuinely ignorant, and then there's some sophists who have been on the show and like intentionally mislead. And I'm like, that's the kind of stuff I'm mad about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like
All
the
right.
people that come on ignorantly and learn, because that's what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, respect to the Krasensteins for listening to me just go off for 20 minutes about Ukraine and Gazprom and the Qatar Turkey pipeline and Nord Stream and all that stuff. Oh, and you guys see that Seymour Hersh, I think, article? The U.S. and Norway destroyed Nord Stream 2.
Oh, yeah.
That's bad news. That's if that
U.S.
like,
is denying it.
Is that news?
I don't know. Well, I don't know, but the fact of the matter is, if you give Russia more reason to accuse the U.S. of stuff, then then it's going to be an escalation. And so, regardless of who knew what or whatever, the fact that Russia can now say, "Look, the U.S. here's more evidence. The U.S. is blah blah blah." That means NATO is. That means it's justifying escalation, and this whole thing could very easily get way out of hand. And that way out of hand is talking about the possible nuclear exchange between the U.S. and Russia. Whether it be unlikely or not, whether you think it's unlikely or not, I don't think that really matters, because it's like I carry a gun. It's unlikely that I'm going to ever have to use my gun, but I carry the gun because of what happens if I need a gun. Like that's this. It's like the result of a nuclear exchange is so catastrophic, you have to treat it as if it's always a possibility, because the result is the end of, possibly the end of modern civilization.
We can't go to war with Russia. Just period.
Absolutely not.
Yes.
I'm willing to end
We're
the
at war
world
with Russia.
over which country owns Crimea, Phil. I don't know about you. I'm just
I mean,
kidding.
I was
I'm not.
thinking about it, and I was like, nuclear annihilation and the end of humanity is worth it for a small, peninsula in the Black Sea.
And the people sorry to go on about this, but it's so frustrating to hear people say, "Oh, well, Russia's going to go and make a move on other NATO countries and stuff." And it's like, the reason that we have NATO and the reason that Ukraine is not in NATO is because of Ukraine's history with Russia. And if we were to go ahead and say, well, everyone that Russia gets into some kind of conflict with, we just go ahead and fold them into NATO and then attack Russia, you might as well not have NATO and just initiate a first strike against Russia. Not
like
endorsing that, but I'm saying
I am. Might as well not have NATO part at least.
Well, yeah. That I'm saying initiating the first strike is part of it.
We got this one from Nick Williams. Says John Fetterman is in the hospital. Everyone punch your 2023 bingo
I
cards.
heard that last night, actually.
Did you guys watch the new South Park?
No, but I saw you tweeting about it, and I can't wait to watch it.
Who is they?
Yeah, yep. So it's about Cartman has Cupid Ye, which is is floating around wearing his hoodie. And it's very, it's telling a token that, black people are the real Jews or whatever.
I want to get Matt
And
and
there's a scene.
I can't wait to watch
There's a scene where Cartman is in bed and Cupid Ye mentions they, and then he says, "Who is they?" And so, we indirectly got our mockery from South
I
Park.
love those guys.
I love it.
They're tapped in, man.
And then the credits, I noticed something. It said like written by Matt Stone, directed by Matt Stone, with special assistant to Matt Stone, Trey Parker. And I'm like, is that a joke or is legit one of them just like
Maybe
bowing
Trey
out?
took the month off.
Yeah, right.
Maybe.
All right. Yeah, Fetterman's in the hospital, man.
That sucks. They said I heard that he had a second stroke. Could be complete BS. I don't know. That's just it's terrifying, man. It's so.
Who's the lieutenant governor? Or I know that he's not the governor. Never mind. I'm sorry. Brain
wife.
fart. She wants it. She wants it. So if something happens to him, do they have like just another runoff or something like that, or how would they replace? Would the governor appoint a senator? Or
I have no idea.
I don't know.
Do you know how that works, Tim? If something happens, would it happen to John? He can't serve. Does someone get appointed?
Yeah, they appoint someone, I think.
Is the governor would appoint
His wife. The speculation from a lot of people was that he would be forced out due to a medical issue, and then they would put his wife in.
I'm kidding.
That was just a joke because everyone that makes a joke that his wife runs everything anyway.
She does. Yeah, I'm going to be sick.
I think she planned it somehow.
I'm going to vomit.
All right, let's see.
By the way, Tower Gang endorsed Fetterman. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah,
I mean,
for the
Luke did too,
comedy.
Yeah.
Unironically.
Unironically,
Tons
I
of-
would have
Mike-
voted for him.
Michael Malice did too, didn't he?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
he
think
was
so,
like,
yeah.
"Are you kidding? We got to have that guy."
I mean, even then, he's such a great
I
representation
want a
of everything we
Congress
hate.
full of Fettermans, all vegetables who can't get anything done. That's perfect.
This is a good one here from Figgy Merman. He says James O'Keefe is the only person Project Veritas has exposed as a bad person without any video. Do better.
Yeah, where's the video, guys? Come
It's
on,
the-
it's Project Veritas.
It's the only time they've accused someone of malfeasance without evidence.
Good point.
That's it. I just don't believe it.
Rare Project Veritas L.
Yeah. And James O'Keefe is Project Veritas.
Yeah, he's
Like
the
often
face.
when we talk about it, we don't even say Veritas, we say James O'Keefe.
Right.
But
But
James
he-
O'Keefe releases. James O'Keefe exposes.
He is the face. He doesn't want to be thought of as the thing. I know he's told me that to my face. Like, it's a movement that he's a part of.
Yeah.
And he's become kind of an icon in the movement.
He is.
But it is a great movement, greater than all of us.
All right, let's grab some more. El Jefe says, part of fighting together, Tim, is denouncing your plan to host a drag show. You can't promote sexual lewdness while claiming to fight sexual lewdness. No, there's a point in that drag show. So I said, I'm going to put on the biggest... Cenk Uger, the Young Turks, was like, if I could afford it, I'd put on a big drag show. And I'm like, okay, then I'll do it. We're going to put on the biggest drag show. We're going to have a bunch of drag performers. And there'll be free food and drinks, 21 and over, of course, because of the drinking. And there should be no problems, right? Nobody should have anything to complain about. It's funny, when I said that, no leftist said anything. They immediately just dropped the subject.
Right.
It's like, because are you really going to come out and rebut and be like, but let the kids in? And I'm like, there's alcohol.
Right.
But let them in anyway. No. So, look, man, I'm not a staunch conservative. I have no problem with burlesque.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if people want to go to a show and there's women and they do their burlesque thing, and if it's drag, they want to do the thing, it's just not for kids. Just
I've heard it's fun. I don't know.
no kids. I mean, ain't my cup of tea. I've seen those videos and I'm like, I would not enjoy whatever that is. That's I just.
Right.
But I don't know. Some people like watching boxing. I'm not a fan of boxing. I'd rather watch MMA.
Look, I've watched RuPaul's drag show, and that's funny. The drag race, that show's funny, but I don't know if I'm going to go to a bar to see a drag show.
I've heard they're pretty. Like, there's a place I think in like Florida called Hamburger Mary's where they do that. And I've heard. I mean, some people tell me it's like fun because they make it comedic. It's like a whole show, but it's not for kids. Like,
No,
you know.
not at all.
I mean, I don't know. It doesn't sound like my thing, but I don't know. Maybe I would enjoy it. I don't know. I've never tried it.
All right. Feeling Dangerous says, hey, I just want my super chat read. LMAO. Well, there you go. Bring Jim Jordan on again. He was awesome. Would love a full episode. Well, so, you know, here's what happens. We get Matt Gaetz to come on. I'm a big fan. And I thought it was a great episode. Hanging out on Friday night. I could barely talk. So he's just, you know, explaining all of these things. When he mentioned the Pelosi's, or Paul Pelosi buying that stock on the, what was it, on the dip? And then the
Yep.
bills get killed and don't make it to the floor. That's crazy. So I get reached out. Bobert's team reaches out and said, they're going to be doing this big hearing. So we'd love to do a show with you, but getting out to you guys is very difficult. Can you come to us? Because here's how it basically works. For them, they're getting prepped all day for a hearing, and they're sitting there questioning, executives. They can't come out here until the very last minute. But we have employees who could go there, set up, and then once they're done with their hearings, run in, sit down, and talk to us. And they basically were like, if you can come out here and do it, we'll get like everybody to come on the show. And I was like, I mean, dude, that sounds incredible. Mm-hmm. So getting to meet Jim Jordan, having him come on and explain a lot of this stuff was really great. Matt Gaetz walked right in, started dropping a bunch of F-bombs. And
Yeah,
just,
it was great.
It was fantastic. I'm like, this guy from Congress here is just cussing up a storm on this live show to hundreds of thousands of people.
Also, the staff was awesome.
Yeah.
You guys rock. And the amount of work, they do like 6 a.m. to 10, 11 p.m. every day. Like,
Yeah.
it's 5 days a week. It is, like, you might, from a TV, it might look like they don't do a lot, but my Lord, are they invested in what
No,
they're
really
doing.
they are. Yeah, shout out to the Bober staff, by the way, as well. I appreciate all the help.
Calvin Torgensen says, shout out to Ian on his Britney Venti video. You strike me as a very genuine and curious person. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
What was your video?
I made a video about 2 o'clock today about the whole thing. I was getting videos. There's a video of me and Eliza from back in the day where we were hugging and like cuddling and hanging out with Adam and Nishra back in their house, drinking whiskey. And everyone's like, "What's up? What's wrong with Ian?" And I'm like, "I'm making a video. I'm done. I'm not playing this in text. I'm not doing it in text." So I just made a video as straightforward as I can be. Came out 13 minutes long. Got my periodic chart behind me. Check it out, Ian Crossland on YouTube.
There you go. All right, what do we have? John L. says, have to send Phil love for his music, but Death Punch deserves credit for lining the dream on COVID and welcome to the circus, the world today. All right.
I love the guys in Five Finger Death Punch, and I appreciate the kudos. I'm not sure exactly what you meant, but the guys in Five Finger,
Phil.
they're sweethearts. They're wonderful people. I love them all. So.
Duke says, call these clowns out, Tim. Trump is Trump. He is just Trump. Flannel Guy is a clown. I'll continue to give to you if you call Flannel Guy out.
I love it.
Flannel Guy, you're a clown.
Thank you.
That's my favorite thing about Flannel Guy, though.
Yeah. I am known for evoking reactions from people, so...
Well, Flannel Guy, look, Donald Trump is the greatest president we've ever had, and I think you owe him an apology.
Yeah, get to it, Flannel Guy.
Donald Trump, I will apologize to you if you come on Tower Gang. That is my stipulation.
You're like, I'm so sorry. I was mean, please. I genuinely think Trump is the best president of my life.
Oh, I agree. Of my life.
Yeah, of my life.
I mean, it's a bar that's buried under the ground, but he is the best.
Yeah. Was he like the only one who didn't sort of start a war? I mean,
he was ending them.
Like,
Sort of. I'll take what I can get.
It's a low bar, like you said. It's like,
bar.
I'll take it.
Very low bar.
There's a lot to be said about Donald Trump. I think he really did want to keep his promises. I think he really did try. I just think he brought on bad people. I think he's brash and he's arrogant. But
what do you think about him campaigning with Lindsey Graham? Is that a good sign that he's learned his lesson? Or
right now, no. And that's why we have a lot of people being like, maybe DeSantis is the guy.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Who do you see as a president?
Ron Paul.
Nobody.
What about Rand Paul?
Realistically, there's gonna
Rand
be
Paul?
one.
I mean, yeah, like I don't know if that's realistic, but
So many different ways
that would be way better than anything else we have.
So you just wouldn't campaign if you don't see someone you like?
I mean, Dave Smith, he's talked about it. I love the idea, but frankly, like I've given up on the idea of fixing our federal government. I think it's 100% local. I think you got to find a place that you think you can invest in. I'm all in on the Free State Project at this point. I'm all about, like, if Dave wants to run for president and try to, send a message and attract people to these ideas, I think it's great. But hoping that we're going to have any sort of, like, political revolution to save this mess, I think it's just, there's no way. I think it's done.
Duke here gave us another super chat, a huge one, $200.
Whoa.
He really doesn't like you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, shout out. Thanks for the super chats, man.
You keep bringing them back.
Want to make sure that. I mean, if Duke keeps giving us this level of money, I mean, maybe. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Duke. I appreciate the super chats.
Just call me flannel clown to, like, make
flannel
it
clown.
Yeah, flannel clown.
Can you tell Reed what Duke called him, please?
What?
Can you tell Reed what Duke called him?
What, the flannel guy?
Haircut
flannel
That's
guy?
what he called him.
I don't think we can say the other thing.
That's what I'm thinking.
No, we're not allowed to say the other one.
I'll tell you later.
All right, I want to know.
If we do it in
There's
tower
kids-
form, I think we're
there's
all right.
kids-
Oh, yeah, let's tower it.
No. There's kids listening.
Yeah, you can't do it.
Driz
Mission accomplished.
says,
but he's right though.
Driz says, bro, I'm proud of you and Jeremy. Call out the bad, give credit where credit is due. Respect, man. Yeah, I think you guys are allowed to be mad at me. Hopefully we can just move on and focus the fight on the issues that matter substantially more. I just don't see there to be. I hope Stephen Crowder and the Daily Wire guys eventually get to a point where they're like, okay, whatever, we're doing important things. It got to this point with Veritas where I'm just like, yo, if this keeps happening, we're done.
Yeah,
it's over. It's over in 6 months.
That was what my video was about today. It was a little bit about Eliza. It was really about Brittany getting her account banned. I'm really concerned with social media overreach right now. Even though we got a hero in Twitter, a lot of people think Elon's the hero. It doesn't mean that people can't go crazy. So I went on and on about that. Let's stay focused on censorship and make sure that's done righteously.
Backhand 187 says, first ever super chat. The easy fix to the Eliza Blue story, Tim, is to have Brittany Venti on the show. Yes, agreed. And I'm planning on having Shane Cashman on with Chrissy Mayer. So I think we can just, as a means to be like, we're going to hash all this out. Because we pride ourselves on being the people who sit down and talk about things that are controversial. And we complain when people refuse to show up to debate these issues. So we will have that conversation. And I'm hoping we can do it next week. The reality is this would be special privileges in a sense, in that we're booked up for like 3 or 4 weeks out or longer. But I'm pretty sure we can find a way to have Chrissy and Shane come in and then do, I think tomorrow would be the best thing. I don't know if it's possible. Tomorrow, considering, one, we had this conversation today and kind of hashed things out as it was. I apologized. Jeremy apologized. I don't know if Jeremy needs to apologize as much as I probably do, because I was being a dick and being very arrogant on Twitter, and I can accept that. But Fridays are good days to just kind of chill and just talk about everything. But I feel bad for the guests we already have booked. I don't want to, ram them into this conversation. But we'll figure it out. Maybe some point next week we'll get this going.
Chrissy's in New York. That's not too far, right?
Yeah, super. And I think Shane might be around. I genuinely think as I'm looking through this, like, I hope people understand. Maybe we'll get into the specifics on what was being sent to us, because that triggered us. That triggered me. Don't like the things being sent to my friends and that kind of stuff. I'm like, bro, you come with my friends, I'm done. I will shut this whole company down if people threaten my friends. And so, but I got to thinking, like, Jeremy didn't do that. Like, I'm being baited, man. I'm being tricked.
And if someone wants to shut your company down and they'll send you shit about your friends, that's
exactly
bad. You gotta.
And if I'm not being tricked, I shouldn't be fighting with people who agree with me because we're mad about one thing. That's stupid. Right. I know I said it 800 times, so I'll just try and read some more super chats. Duke sent us another super chat. Tim, why the hell would you have haircut and flannel guy on? Bad timing. I'm done with you, bro. Come on, you told me if I called him out, you'd stick around.
Keep sending money, buddy. It's only increasing our chances of coming back.
I read the super chats. People are allowed to criticize our guests. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously, we're talking about the Eliza Blue thing now. That got to a point. Right.
But I hope I somehow become more controversial.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of flannel.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Our audience is split between MAGA and libertarian. There's like an overlap between them so I think most people are just going to be like, well, yeah, they're libertarians. They're all right. We don't agree on Trump. Doc Holiday says, Tim, thank you for the humility. None of us are reasonable people. None of us reasonable people wanted you to change your opinion or disavow anyone. We just wanted acknowledgement, as you are big enough to call attention to the censorship. Thank you. Fight on. So we got a message from someone saying, I will not support you if you don't disavow this person. And so I said, F you, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. And then we got an email from that person saying, yo, that was not me. Someone made a fake account using that name. I am still a member. I'm not leaving. And we were like, that made me be like, yo, we're getting played. We're getting played. People are faking us. We're getting played, man. But whatever. You know what? If there are people who are legitimately mad or whatever, then they can keep being mad at me. I don't know, whatever. I'm a guy complaining the internet for a living. All right. Jay Walker says, tell Phil he accidentally blocked me on the Bird app at Walker Jerry.
It wasn't an accident.
That's what I was thinking.
The thing is, for my opinion on the Bird app is the same as Michael Malice. It is like block loosely for whatever, because my experience on the Bird app is my experience. It's not your experience. And I have no desire to listen to people that are just going to flame me. If you come and say something polite, I'll respond. I probably respond more than most people. I'm on the Bird app too much. But if you come and you're snarky and I don't know you, or you think that you know me and stuff, I might just go ahead and block you. So
something I realized through all this is that your social media status with someone is not indicative of your friendship with them. I have friends that I am not friends with on social media because we just annoy each other in text. But they're he's my good friend. Like,
yep. Me and Jason Richardson doesn't follow me on Twitter because I drive him nuts. But we just spent all last week hanging out, being buddy. Big hugs when I see him, big hugs when I leave, because we get along famously when we're hanging out together. We just disagree on some political stuff, and so he doesn't follow me, and I'm not mad at him for it.
All right, last one. Mike Daly says, your podcast last night was one of the most important podcasts ever. Thank you. 2 of the microphones didn't work. And we know why. It's a driver issue with the channels, that the computer doesn't pick up 2 of them and you only get 2 or whatever. But the good news is, you see, the members of Congress were really excited to be able to do a show in that fashion. Imagine if Tucker Carlson was like, we're bringing the studio to your office, you can come on the show. They'd be like, whoa. But it's harder for him to do that, easier for us. Albeit it was difficult. I mean, Serge and Andrew really pulled it together and busted ass to make that happen.
Yeah, very last second, honestly.
What was that like?
It was great. I got to walk around in Congress. They got the Dunkin' Donuts in there.
Yeah, that was cool.
They have a Baskin Robbins next to it, too.
They have a Dunkin' in Congress?
Yeah,
in a Subway.
Yeah, people are buying, like, literally pints of ice cream. It was kind of crazy to see.
As a New Englander, I'm happy to hear that Dunkin' is in Congress.
Yeah,
It smells good.
But we're gonna do it again because following that, we get some messages from other staffers being like, "Why didn't we think of this? Can we do it again?" I'm like, "You tell me when." Because this is why we came to the DC. We're about an hour or so outside of DC, hour 20, hour 30. And I'm like, that's the point. Because this is the seat of politics. I hate DC, by the way. But we can do things like this. So I think we're probably going to get more shows. And they'll be set up way better with better lighting. This was like a last minute thing where it was like Friday, hey, can you come out? And I'm like, oh, let me see if we can figure it out. Serge had to figure out building the mobile setup and getting all the equipment. We didn't even know where the equipment was. We're like, we got to go find it because it's in storage.
Took a while. I was so stressed, guys. My hair fell out.
That's right. That's right. But now that we've gone through that, gone through all that, we're talking with other members, and we think we'll be able to set up the show and do another one relatively soon, which would just be really, really great. So the idea is the next time there's a big hearing, and we want follow-up and conversation on that stuff, like especially the weaponization of government hearings.
Right.
That's the most important thing, in my opinion, going right now.
Exactly. Imagine we set up right after they do those hearings. We sit down with Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, Bo Bird, et cetera, and the crew, Anna Paulina Luna, and are able to talk about these Byron Donalds.
And cross aisle. That's really exciting. A lot of people in the chat were super chatting. They want to see like people from both sides of the political aisle coming together and talking about these crazy things.
I mean, if they can get a Democrat who wants to come on and they agree to have a conversation about the weaponization of government, and we agree to keep that in the I would be, look, my concern is if we had someone like Ilhan Omar or AOC, we'd get into the tribal issues. We'd get into cultural issues that we disagree on. But if there is common ground where we can solve a real problem and we agree, okay, we'll put aside these other things and we'll specifically talk about the thing we agree on and agree not to attack each other, I think at least that conversation is better than nothing. Maybe there's an opportunity there, like talking about war, foreign policy and stuff. And then we'll be like, agree not to go after cultural character and things like that. But I'll leave it there. My friends, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and become a member at timcast.com if you want to watch the members-only uncensored show where we'll tell you how we really feel. I'm kidding. But we will swear a lot more. We did swear a bit in this episode because I figured, you know what, screw it. You know, Matt went off a little bit and started swearing. We'll swear towards the end of this one. But we're going to talk about some more cultural issues over at timcast.com, which should be up in about 1 hour. So thank you all for your support. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally at Timcast. Tower Gang guys, you want to shout anything out?
We have the Tower Gang show. It goes on YouTube and Rumble live at every Wednesday at 9/11. I also have my other show, No Way Jose. You get it.
That's a real time, too.
Obvious joke is obvious. But anyways, then I have my No Way Jose show. That's on YouTube. All the major auto packagers obviously as well. Go check out my OKC playlist. And you follow me at Tower Gang Jose if you want to follow me on Twitter.
Yeah, and I'm also a co-host on Tower Gang. I have my show, The Naturalist Capitalist. That is on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey for video. It's on all audio streaming platforms as well. Also, I'm on Free Talk Live every Thursday night out of Keene, New Hampshire from 7 to 10. And I do the Four Horsemen show once a month with my friends Ryan Dawson and Eric Jackman. Go check them out on Twitter. They're at Rye Liberty and at Jackman Radio. You can follow me on Twitter at Reed Coverdale, also on Instagram and on Telegram at Reed Coverdale. And if you think libertarians are kind of lame and gay, sometimes that's right. So go follow the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire because we're way more based and bold than the rest of the libertarians out there at LPNH. And check out the Free State Project. Think about moving to New Hampshire if you want to make a difference for liberty in your lifetime. That's all I got to say.
I am Phil That Remains. The band is All That Remains. Phil That Remains on Twitter. Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. Check out the band All That Remains. It's heavy. It's metal. You'll love it. You'll mosh.
Phil, I'm glad you're back.
I love you.
I think you're going to be here for a while, huh?
Well,
love you too, by the way.
I have nothing planned for like All That Remains-y stuff for the next at least month and a half.
Ooh, oh, you're playing me one before the show. I like.
Yeah, we were busy out there. We got some cool stuff, man. There's some really great. The best All That Remains is still yet to come. The best metal that All That Remains has made is still yet to come. Our days are going to be great.
I want to scream with you. Baby, let's do this. I'm so glad you guys came. This was
We're
awesome.
So glad. We appreciate it.
It was
so much,
great.
yeah.
Great conversation.
Awesome.
man.
Okay, so guys, go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Ian Crossland. Check out the video earlier today. I'm looking for a UX dev. If you want to get involved, hit me up on Twitter or on Minds. And also, I think that's about it. We need an open source large language model. We'll get into that a little later. Bye, everyone.
And of course, I am at Serge.com. Sorry about the technical issues yesterday. It's fine. It'll work out next time. Follow me on Twitter. I'm almost at like 4K, which is crazy. I never thought that would happen in my life. But yeah, see you there.
We will see you all over at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out.
Cheers.